Hello, and thank you for joining us here on the Wild Wild West podcast. My name is Richie Rich A of the MHRT Network. We have a great show planned for you today, but first, let's bust into the intros. Over to my right or left, depending on which way you are facing your screen, is Alex Givens, the real Alex Givens. You can catch his content over on Arrowhead Addict, and you can also catch him as soon as the regular season starts on the Lightning Fast Fantasy podcast on Coach Defense's channel. Down directly below me here in the balmy Southern California area.
R.I.P.
Man, it would be nice if I was there at the moment.
But I am no longer relevant. Frame it.
Yeah. Donning.
Yeah, it's a sad day to be a Chargers
so donning
fan,
the powder blue there is so donning the powder blue is Robert, who is repping his Chargers. Thank you, Robert, for giving us your insight. And it is a sad day for the Wild Wild West, as this is Raider Transplant, aka Angelo here, his last show. We will be joined next week by the Salty Pirate himself again, Captain Jack. So it'll be both a sad and happy day to have Captain back here on the show. Angelo, we are gonna miss you. I'll leave the floor for you to kind of say your piece and all those good things, and then we'll jump right into the show.
Yeah, no, it's been extremely fun, and in a lot of ways too. And I remember going into this and Captain Jack, telling me about the crew, and he was like, Alex is kind of smug, but it'll be all right. And I didn't really find myself doing a lot of screaming matches with Alex, actually. And just like you said, Rich, Alex is actually quite a very nice man. I've appreciated all three of you's insight, and to do a show like this, I think has been just very fun for everybody who's I've tracked it, at least on the Captain Jack side. And man, a lot of you guys are watching it on his channel. So thank you for the support. Hopefully, the four of us have been able to bring you the insight that you want on a friendlier perspective. I think that's like some of the overall comments over the last 4 weeks of me being a part of the show, and some of the newer people coming in to watch it. They all kept saying, this is interesting. Everybody's kind of friendly with each other. So I think again that, it's the Super Bowl champs up here above me that we need to all target. So I'm sure when Captain Jack comes back, he'll be able to bring his saltiness back to everyone and be able to give you guys some of that pirate bravado. But in the meantime, as Rich is off stage for now, Alex, thank you very much.
It's a power move.
Yeah,
I kicked Rich off.
That's right. That's right. No, but it's been very, very fun to definitely have the back and forths with you, Alex, and then Robert. Thank you for giving me 2 hours of your time.
Oh, absolutely.
That's still one of it's already gotten a lot of views, man. Our show, because like I told you, the audio was great. So if you just wanted to get the actual information,
people love seeing us go back and forth.
yeah. No, the back and forth is fun as long as it's intelligent, right? I think that too many times I have seen some shows where everybody's just kind of yelling at each other. And for me, again, I'm not going to sit there and try to pretend like I work for the NFL. Again, for all of you who've been supporting me this entire time, I do not have my own channel yet. I am 20 months liver transplant recovery right now. So I'm just thanking my lucky stars that I'm alive and I get to do this with all of you guys whenever I can. But my background is in professional boxing and professional mixed martial arts. So I can take a lot of this and look at the athletics of it all. But I'm a football fan. I love football. Alex would actually know the technical aspects of being a lineman more than I would because he played the position. But if we're going to talk about championship mentality and all of that other stuff, I have a pretty good let's just say if you Google search my name, I actually know what I'm talking about when it comes to championship level and championship level coaching. So that's what I hope I've been able to bring to the table for all of you guys. That's what I hope all of you guys have had a blast on. I will miss all of you who interact on the chat room. You guys are fantastic, always interacting. Trust me, guys, we are actually reading it, and sometimes when we don't respond back, thank you, Erica. It's not because we're not seeing it; it's because we're like in the middle of a discussion, which is what we're going to do today. So, in the meantime, as Rich is doing his thing because he's trying to get ready for my final show, where he knows I'm going to bring a ton of stats, and all of you guys who watch on the Captain Jack Rackham show, I keep bringing all these final stats. I believe today, Alex, if I'm not mistaken, Robert, we are going to be talking about where we actually are at now that free agency started to slow down, although there are some names out there and there are some things that we still need to address. So I think it's only fair for us to start with the champs, because the champs, I mean, I hate to say this, but they're in a pretty good spot picking 32, because there's so many different things they can do right now, and they've addressed so many of the needs that they really have. I think the biggest fear I would have for your team, Alex, in my opinion, is complacency. Winning back-to-back championships, man, tends to make people do crazy stuff like travel all over the world to watch the Eras Tour, get a little bit more famous, and do a bunch of stuff. You know, Ladarius Sneed getting paid like $20 million. I mean, that money, man, I will tell all of you guys who are watching from the Raider Nation that when I do my boxing, MMA, and Raider show this Sunday on the Captain Jack channel, Sunday at 6, I'm going to bring up the Marvin Hagler phrase. It's great. Rich is back. So I'm about to turn it into Alex, but I just want to say this phrase first. So as I was saying, Alex, the one weakness I can see you guys having is the complacency, because as Marvin Hagler once said, it sure is hard to get up in the morning to train for your championship fights when you were wearing a silk robe the night before going to sleep. And I think that the $20 million for Sneed, highest paid player for Chris Jones, Travis Kelce has got the greatest sugar mama he could ever have. You know, Patrick Mahomes is on top of the world. So I don't know, man. Does the champs got the vigor left to go for the three-peat, something that's never been done before?
Yeah, I mean, I guess when you're at the top, the only place to go is down, right? So it's really the only thing you can hope for if you're not in the Chiefs kingdom. But yeah, I mean, I've really liked the moves they've made, so far this offseason. I know we talked at length about re-signing Jones, since we talked last show about the free agency period. They, certainly made, a few more signings, more so re-signing guys back. So pretty much you look across the board outside of a few depth pieces from last year, it's pretty much the same team, still with a hole at left tackle right now. But then, the big splash signing at the end of it, heading into the weekend or what weekend or Sunday, was announced that they signed Hollywood Brown, which I did say, last week that I thought they were going to go still utilize the market to get a wide receiver and add some more depth. And honestly, looking at the contract now, the specifics have come out. They got a pretty hell of a good deal for someone who, no one can deny is fast, and brings some of the same Tyreek traits to this offense that we haven't had. I'm not saying he's Tyreek Hill. Obviously, he hasn't proven that. But to get a guy with that type of athletic ability who has put up 1,000 yards in a pretty crappy passing offense, and getting him at 25 and putting him into this offense with Mahomes in his prime, all that for, $6 million, maybe 11 if he is hitting all of his incentives. That's a pretty good deal. And that's kind of what we've seen KC do these past few years with some of these tweener guys that, were early picks with a lot of promise, didn't necessarily pan out. And then they bring them in for a 1-year deal of like, hey, come here, produce, prove to the rest of the league that you can still put up numbers and go get a bag somewhere else. We saw Juju do that. Tyrann Mathieu to some degree, but he was getting paid pretty good, but he definitely got paid more to go to New Orleans. But you've seen them do that with some of these kind of middle 25 to 27-year-old players that haven't really done much. But yeah, I mean, hard not to be excited about the Hollywood Brown signing. Like I'm not going to act like again that they brought in Tyreek Hill and he's good for 1,500 yards and touchdowns.
Yeah, Alex, I'm going to let you keep going because you deserve to. When the Hollywood Brown signing happened for me, I was like, "Are you effing kidding me?" Honestly, you already have like you were already going to get. I don't know, Adonai Mitchell, Xavier Worthy, Lad McConkey. I mean, like I was like, you're already going to get somebody anyway. Why, Hollywood? Why would you do this to us?
They can still get him.
Go stay in the NFC or something, right? The only other
and
thing
I think at the end of the day,
go ahead.
I'm just saying, I think at the end of the day, we see that, there are some players who I think it's a very big appeal to come play in the Andy Reid offense and play for Mahomes. I mean, when you look at Hollywood Brown, started his career off, he was in a Greg Roman offense with not fully developed Lamar, and then gets traded to Arizona with, Kyler and then Josh Dobbs and all these other people. So, I mean, to him, I kind of got the sense that, he was testing the market for whatever reason outside of Jerry Jeudy. We saw that the market was pretty just Jeudy and Ridley. We saw the market was pretty bare for receivers.
Richie's so probably really happy about that.
Man, I could not believe those numbers.
I was going to wait for Rich to talk about that when we get to it. But go ahead.
Yeah.
Is that it for you with the Hollywood Brown?
I mean, it like I said, great signing, hell of an athlete, like very excited to see how they use him. I think adding a little bit more of a higher caliber receiver in free agency, I think is going to lend us more to seeing them go tackle in the draft. I mean, everyone in the world right now is mocking every wide receiver, Xavier Worthy and such to the Chiefs right now, but I really do think that by them securing Hollywood Brown, that firms up some of the draft plans. On top of seeing guys like Tyrone Smith go to the Jets, and kind of the open left tackles out there are sort of bare now. So I mean, great way to cap off free agency for the Chiefs. Like I said, they re-signed Derek Nandi and Turk Wharton, so pretty much brought back all the defensive line outside of Mike Dana, who's still unsigned. And then on top of other players lost, we saw Jody Fordson, who was kind of a promising tight end, but I mean, he ended up never really staying too healthy to do much, but he went to Miami, I think for a 1-year deal. And then Mike Edwards, kind of the ball hawking safety we had, sort of played that rover spot a lot this year, ended up signing with the Bills on a 1-year deal. But yeah, like I said, pretty solid free agency to not lose, a lot of big pieces, and continue to add to the explosiveness and athleticism of the offense. So now it's really see how they build towards the draft, and I guess what they do with Snead, because at this point that's still that seems to just be an ever revolving door on what's happening.
I'm glad you brought that up, because I was going to ask you this before we went on to the next person on the panel. Is I know that at 32, a lot of people are already going, great. It's going to be Adonai Mitchell, Lad McConkey, Xavier Worthy, like you name it, right? All these great wide receivers that's going to drop on that second tier, but don't exactly suck. And on an offense like the Kansas City Chiefs, as why I picked Rashee Rice, everyone in the Fantasy Football League, picked him as my wide receiver 3, right? I was smart enough to do it in his rookie year. People thought I was crazy, but I was like, no, man, Rashee Rice is going to do great. Is it possible because of this big fat paycheck that Ladarius Sneed is still getting, and you haven't restructured it? Could Kansas go corner? Because I saw Kool-Aid McKinstry today, and for a guy with an injury, sure looked pretty good. And at 32, man, I mean, like I know Quinion Mitchell's being talked about, which obviously makes sense. The way he dominated everybody in the Senior Bowl should make him be the first defensive back cornerback off the draft. Plus, I like him too. AP, Antonio Pierce, for all of you who don't know who that is sitting there chopping it up with the 20-year-old Terrion Arnold. So it's making everyone think, well, maybe we'll get Terrion Arnold at 13, although I'm not so sure about that still. When I get to my segment, I'll talk about it. But man, I think about Kool-Aid
McKinstry Matt earlier in the show.
Yeah, I think about Kool-Aid McKinstry going to the Chiefs, and I'm getting really upset about it. So, what do you think? What do you think?
I mean, I would not be upset. So on the Sneed thing, there's certainly been a lot of conflicting reports, but I think what is confirmed is, at least the Colts and I think I can't remember who the other team now, but there are at least 2 teams that were pretty aggressively interested in Sneed, and I think it came down to compensation and the money he was wanting, which is reportedly to be the highest paid corner in the NFL. More power to him from trying to maximize on his worth. But the Chiefs obviously aren't going to pay that. And it appears these other teams aren't going to pay that. There's been reports that a deal was done to the Colts. So that kind of just the fact that that's still coming out probably lends me to think that teams are still trying to take a bite at the apple. And I think it's going to ultimately come down to Sneed or his agent or whoever's, in his ear. Like, hey, do you want to, play for 1 year at 20 mil and then we'll try this again? Or are you willing to, take a little bit off for more longevity with someone else? And so I think that's really because from what I've seen, the Chiefs are absolutely comfortable and they've already made the moves to have the space to afford him on on the tag for 1 more year and still, make other moves that they need to make. So, like I said, I think that they kind of put their cards on the table and said, it's up to you now, which, I think they played that out pretty well from a perspective of, being strategic with the numbers and kind of letting him go test the market and find out that teams aren't really willing to pay him, what he thinks he's worth. So, we'll see how that goes, but I definitely could see them, going kind of wherever they want with this 32 pick in terms of where they want to kind of rebuild, that room, whether that be a corner knowing Sneed's probably gone in a year, because we kind of saw him do that with McDuffie, trade up and get him. So I think that's why I said I think bringing in Hollywood Brown kind of knocks receiver as much of a glaring need as I would have said it was last week, which I think then kind of opens the door for them to sort of play the board and like, oh, hey, Arnold's falling or some tackles falling. Like we can try to make a move to go up and get that and shore up our piece, wherever that is. Because, I mean, as smug as people say I am, I think it is pretty apparent that they don't really have a lot of holes in their roster, given the fact that they just won back-to-back Super Bowls and basically re-signed everyone. Now, it's kind of the moves they make now is what I'd say sets up the potential longevity of their success. Mm-hmm. Once you see Kelsey, Jones, kind of the old regime sort of age out. So that's why I think it was good to get Hollywood Brown, even if it is for a 1 year deal, because that lets them, not kind of be hogtied to like, I have to get a wide receiver here in this first round. Now they can, kind of just, like I said, let teams do what they're doing, let the board play out, and just build some depth where it's most valuable.
Yeah, you guys are definitely going for the three-peat this year. That's what all your moves tell me. You guys are going full hard into the next year.
Yeah.
You're investing. It's the perfect place for a lot of the free agents to go. You get 1 year prove-it deals in a place in a team that wants to win now, and you get to be with the best quarterback. So it was the best option.
Consistent.
Yeah.
No, I was gonna say it is so impressive.
Every time I'm done talking.
I mean, I was just gonna say, Alex, that it is so impressive because I've even thought of scenarios in where the bombshell of the Vikings now having both the number 11 and the number 23 picks gives them a chance. And the first thought everybody was saying is, oh, they're definitely trading up to go quarterback. And I'm like, not sure. Because having that number 11 pick with the number 23 pick now, can you imagine some insane happen? And I'm just going to throw this out there because they do have the money to do this and they need a cornerback. Vikings go call the Chiefs and go, listen, man, you give us your 32 and you give us Snead right now. We'll give you number 11.
Hell
right?
no.
No. What? You don't think Snead? I mean, Snead's asking to be.
They still got to sign Snead. You would just draft a corner at 11 if you want to do that.
So
you don't think Snead is a capstone piece?
Hell no. We mentioned this career year.
Yeah.
No. Okay, so this is not a knock on Snead.
Okay.
Snead has actually.
Well, I would love for that to happen.
No. Like, did you just see Alex's face light up? He's like, tomorrow, right? Like that. Yeah. Yes. Like, yeah, exactly. Like the answer to this is no, and this is why. Everything that the Chiefs have done has been telling you that they're valuing Donald and not Snead as an organization.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, that is not a knock on Snead.
Jones.
Yeah. Sorry.
He meant Jones.
I was like, wait,
Aaron Donald just retired.
Sorry, I just had a thing in my peripherals of Aaron Donald here. So I meant Chris Jones. So you have Chris Jones, and he's the priority for your organization. He showed that he was worth it. What you saw in the Super Bowl, like he was the reason, in my opinion, for that Super Bowl turnaround for the Chiefs. I just wish he actually got more credit. Not that he's not getting credit, but I wish he got more credit for what we saw on the field. Because I actually think he deserves it.
Well, unfortunately, he started the same time as someone else that you just mentioned, who was a little bit better at the first stretch of everything.
Yeah. So no, but what I mean in terms of what I mean when I say that is, Mahomes got all the credit and all the accolades for the Super Bowl and the win and everything. But in fairness, in my opinion, I think Chris Jones was probably the bigger difference maker in terms of turning the game around. It's just he doesn't get the flash plays. He kind of does the dirty business, the dirty yards, the dirty things on the field, but he does them at all the right times in the game. And unless you're kind of a little bit more involved in football, you kind of miss those things a lot of times on the screen when you're watching. You just kind of say, oh, it was a play. You're like, no. Back that up. Think of when that play occurred. Think of how that play occurred. And then also think of in a chess match, if that team had not had that play broken up by Chris Jones, where the Chiefs would have been on the field at that particular moment and the likelihood of the Chiefs being able to say, stop them and then getting the ball back, et cetera, et cetera. So I think that there's just a few things that are maybe being overlooked with Chris Jones when the average fan and the media kind of really assess the situation. But I digress. We were talking about Snead, and that is he's not being valued by the Chiefs. So why on earth would the Vikings?
He's not really being valued by anyone.
No, he's not.
I mean, it's like the Lamar situation last year.
Fields
I mean, smaller scale, but they basically were
it's exactly a Justin
go find
Fields
a team
it's
that
exactly
will pay you what you want.
Fields.
Yeah.
It's exactly that. So what's he worth? He might be worth a fourth or a fifth to another team right now.
Wow.
Because they also know that he's going to be expecting, and in fairness, earned a larger contract. But it's where's the interest? I might be the only team interested in bringing him in, but I'm not going to be giving you a first. I'm not giving you a second. I would say his upper value right now for most teams is a third. And I think if we're being fair, I think the issue here right now is I think the Chiefs want minimum a second. And I think the problem is that most teams are only willing to go to a third or maybe a fourth, and the Chiefs are like, and they're kind of reluctant, and they're kind of almost saying, we'd rather pay him a year and keep the dude than only take a third for him, which if I'm going to be honest, I actually think is short-sighted for the Chiefs. I actually think the Chiefs should take a third or a fourth for Snead if they're being offered it, because they already know they're not bringing him back next year. So you may as well
walk for free.
Maybe they will. I mean, that's why I think it's still a revolving thing.
Yeah.
I want to just ask this then, Rich, because you do know this type of stuff. With Snead, what is our current ceiling comp for a guy like him right now? Because is he a shutdown corner? Is he more of a zone corner? Can he do multi-purpose? Because I know that, for example, if the Raiders were to offer Alex's team, hey, man, we'll give you the fourth, give us Snead, they'll say, heck no, we're not trying to make you better. Of all the teams we're going to give them to, it's definitely not going to be the Raiders. You guys have Jack Jones. We're not about to partner Snead up with Jack Jones. But a team like the Colts, I think Space Beast put in the comments that, hey, third rounder, that'd be a fair offer. The Colts will offer a third.
I think
they already have Kenny Moore. So what is Snead to you, or in your best description for people who don't know what type of a defensive back, cornerback Snead would be? What would you call
him? I would put him. Do you know who I think is a reasonable comp that we've seen in recent years? I would say Richard Sherman.
Ooh.
And I'm going in that direction because Snead and Sherman both have pretty stellar stats. Snead doesn't have
good corner.
I'm not saying they're not good corners. That's the thing. I said I'm not even knocking Snead.
Fantastic system.
And I truly meant that. I think Snead is an excellent corner in the NFL. I do think he fits a specific style of play, just like Richard Sherman did. I do think that Snead benefits from an incredibly gifted defensive coordinator who puts him in the best possible positions to succeed. So I think that that's something that needs to also be factored in. And if we're going to be honest, Richard Sherman had the same benefits when he was with the Seattle Seahawks. He had an excellent defensive coordinator who put him in great positions to win. And when he was put in that proper position in the right scheme, he blew the doors off the NFL. He had stats that rivaled some of the best cornerbacks in the league for the stretch of time that he was playing in Seattle. And that's inarguable. And Alex can attest, and I know he's mentioned several times, frankly, Snead has put himself in that upper tier from a general stats perspective as well. Now, I don't think he's quite got himself to a point where he's got the same type of respect as, say, like a Patrick Surtain has for the Denver Broncos. Like, I just think that he's not quite gotten to that level of overall respect. But in the Kansas City system, he has gotten himself, in terms of reputationally at least, he's kind of like that one notch below a Surtain, in my opinion, in terms of in the eyes of the league. And that's also exactly why he's not garnering a first-round pick like you suggested, or this massive draft capital that you're suggesting, is simply because he's going to be needing to be paid at or near the top end of the cornerback market. But he only fits a limited number of teams that would want him there because he doesn't have that absolute versatility in terms of skill sets.
Okay. So he would really fit in like the Commanders right now, who have both the money and Dan Quinn as their head coach to throw him in something.
Snead's thing is that Spagnuolo lets him be aggressive. So we saw it in the playoffs. He folded Tyreek by pressing him, and that is how that's like part of his game, is that I'm going to be like so after you that you're not going to be catching stuff because you're going to be worried about what I'm doing. And I mean, if you go look at what he did this whole year, anyone that he lined up against, he shut him down. Now the year before that, he led the team in tackles, which isn't a good thing, but was pretty, not as good as he was this year in pass coverage. So, he hasn't been the shutdown force, through the whole time he's been with KC. And honestly, I think the thing that deters teams, because I think that any team would trade for a corner of Snead's caliber for a second-round pick. But I think the sticking point is the fact that they got to turn around and pay him, and he wants to be paid higher than Jalen Ramsey, which, like, you know, I mean, I don't know if you could put Snead in the same bubble as a Jalen Ramsey as a true shutdown corner. So, you know, I mean, I think that's the sticking point. And I think the Chiefs are just comfortable enough now to wait it out, because you never know once you know, moves happen or the draft comes up. Like, I mean, we've seen wild trades happen. So you never know. Some team could decide, the guy we wanted went, so let's just trade, you know, our second round pick for Snead. And you know, might get later the Chiefs are, hey, there's a guy we want that's here in the third round. I'm gonna call this team. I'll give you Snead right now. Okay, done. So that's why I think it's, you know, there's all this revolving news around, like, the Colts and I think the Titans. I'm blanking on the second team, but there's definitely been significant amount of news about every day of the Colts and someone else, pretty aggressively in on Snead. So, you know, I think we do probably see him go. And I think that, you know, like, Chiefs will get there closer to the value they want. But at the same time, they are certainly prepared, I think, for him to play out one more year and take another bite at the apple next year.
Right. I also think you have the potential of a mid-season trade with Snead as well if things don't work out right now. I think you could end up with a potential contender or a bubble-style team that maybe loses one of their starters, and they start realizing that if we don't fix the problem, then we are going to have a problem. And I think that you're going to start seeing a few teams that are going to find themselves in that situation. And likely also a team that, if they're being honest, they'll look at one of their other corners and say, we actually think Snead is better than the other guy that we have, so we'd be willing to maybe trade for Snead for a third or a second for the upcoming draft, even commit to paying him in the offseason when we know we have this, like, you know, boatload of cap coming back our way sort of thing, and say, and we think he'll help us win games this year and maybe either get to the playoffs. And once you get into the playoffs, you know, who knows what can happen once you get to that point. So I can see a few teams kind of in the mid-season trade market maybe start to try to knock on your door as well if things don't happen in the offseason.
Yeah, I think for the Chiefs too, especially this upcoming season, it's like I said before, they're really going all in for this three-peat. So I really don't think they would mind, you know, holding him and playing him on the franchise tag. You'd let him go for nothing at the end of the season, but if you do win 3 straight, was it worth it? I think it is. I think it'd be worth it.
And on the tag, you know, he's essentially playing again on a contract year. So I mean,
exactly.
you know, you're gonna get the absolute best out of him, because he's gonna want to turn around and say again, look, I did it 2 years in a row now.
And then at that point, he would get paid because it's like, all right, you got back-to-back years, you're a back-to-back Super Bowl winner, like,
and they could, in theory, tag him again and do it.
Again. They really could. So, like, I feel like the Chiefs are like, it's almost like a can't lose situation. It's like, well, we don't have to get rid of him, but hey, if somebody blows us away with it, if someone offers us the 11th pick, absolutely, we're gonna ship him off. Like, we have no ties to him, but if he makes our team better, you know, it's the Chiefs have played this offseason insanely well, and it's really pissing me off. It's just so, like, it's like every move that was the right move for them, and it's so annoying to see.
Yeah, no, I kind of agree with that. So, Alex, you haven't really broken down your current roster much, aside from kind of insinuating, and you're not necessarily wrong, that you don't have a tremendous number of holes. I do want to throw a name out there, since, you know, this is kind of the theme of the show. You're missing a legitimate option at left tackle on your roster. I'm going to throw a name out there for you, Cameron Fleming. He is, or Cam Fleming. His best games are at left tackle. Now, is he a top flight starter? No. Is he, you know, this elite, you know, blow the doors off? No. but is he an absolute serviceable player that will help you win games when he's put in at left tackle? Yes. Like yes, the answer is yes, because I've seen him do it. He is an absolute well above average left tackle at the NFL level. And what that would ultimately do for you is allow you to not be handcuffed to a certain position group coming into the draft. And he would not be, this like $30 million guy that you'd have to bring in for some like, obscene contract.
Yeah.
And so I'm not trying to claim that he's this, elite level left tackle.
He was on the Broncos line. I know how you used to talk about them.
No, but there are certain players that I actually liked on the Broncos line. He was actually one of them, and I thought that he was underutilized and misused. So that doesn't necessarily mean that he's bad. It just means that the coaches, well, first off, it was more the front office than it was the coaches. The front office brought in guys that didn't fit what we were trying to do as an offense, as a team. And now you're paying the price because you're seeing guys look like turnstiles when if they were playing in a proper system for their skill sets, they wouldn't look that bad. So Cam Fleming, I actually think would probably fit what you're trying to do.
Hey, before you go to, I just want to acknowledge all of the Raider Nation people that keep putting all of their comments on the chats. And John Leon, look, remember that this is the way of war, man. You reel them in. I've been talking very nicely about Kansas, but do I believe that we're going to win the AFC West? Of course I do. So when it gets to my part, don't worry. I will talk about how amazing the Raiders are going to be. But go ahead. Sorry, Rich.
Well, I know that drugs are plentiful in Las Vegas, and that's good. That is good for you. That is absolutely good for you. And I would also imagine that you probably still have like the really good Tylenol at home.
Oh no, I don't. Yeah, no, I can't do that. But I do have some very strong.
Right.
It's the higher level.
Right. So stop taking
cool,
that.
Kev, it is not the same. All right.
Transplant, liver transplant medication is very strong, and if there is pain that will come my way, believe me when I say I have the strongest level, other than what you could get into hospital, which is what they call Dilaudid. That's the kind where you literally just press it and you get the juice right away. So.
Yeah. So stop taking that. It's impacting your judgment. Okay.
11th overall pick, man. Seriously.
But save that for at the end of the season, just in case, because it could be helpful.
You know what? I'll say this to all the Raider Nation people. When we win the AFC West, or how about if once it's starting to look like we are going to win the AFC West, I'll jump back on the Wild West show just because I was on the record saying that we're going to win the West. We're just going to win the West. I'm sorry.
At some point, the Raiders will bounce back. They will. It's just inevitable. There's too much parity in the NFL, and I'm not even saying that that's never going to happen. That's just you have to be insane to make a comment like that and actually mean it. My point is that not this year.
Yeah, no.
Right, like not this year, right?
Yeah.
Like not this year. That's all I gotta say.
I will have a very strong factual rebuttal on why I believe we will do it, but go ahead, sir. Yeah, you do your Denver thing.
Sure. So I just want to throw over to Alex and just kind of get his thoughts on, you do have some roster holes, and it's never a good thing to go into a draft to kind of say, like, as an example, let's just for argument's sake say the scenario that you were talking about plays out, where you're coming into the draft and you think a guy is going to fall to you, and you think you can trade up. Well, the problem is if I'm a team that you're trading up with, I'm going to be like, dude, you don't even have a left tackle on your roster. I know who you're going for. So if you really, really, really want my pick, I was going to be willing to take, your first and maybe like a third or a fourth, but you can throw in a third and a seventh, and then I might consider it because I know you really need it. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's you know what? to put in
Supply and
perspective,
demand.
to put
Wait,
in,
I'm trying to understand this trade,
to put this in
Rich.
perspective, though, it's almost the exact opposite to the position you're in with Snead, right? You're in a position where you absolutely need to trade up to get a player, so therefore another team is going to try to kind of put your feet to the fire to get more out of you. Whereas now that teams know you don't really want Snead, they're like, I ain't giving you crap.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I kind of get what you're saying, but I don't think that the hole at left tackle is as like big as they don't have anyone, because they did draft Wanye Morris last year, who started 2 or 3 games at left tackle and looked okay at times. I mean, he was a rookie, 3rd round pick rookie, but he was, I mean, I'd say played better than probably the other rookie tackles if they even got some time. And not to mention that Donovan Smith was like the worst rated PFF lineman, one of the worst rated PFF linemen last year. So it's not like they're really, replacing too much. But so that's why I'm not too sure what they're going to do, because, I would have thought if they thought they had such a big hole at left tackle, that they would have told Tyron Smith, like, whatever money you want, come for a year and we can, figure that out. That, like they tried to do with Donovan Smith, and maybe they do that with Bakhtiari or someone like that. But otherwise, I would think that they're, like I said, planning to just see where the depth kind of falls, because that's really all they need to do now is just add their depth. And, maybe they see if Wanye Morris can, take the starting role and they draft some other competition, 2nd, 3rd round. Maybe they do go early, but, I don't know. It just, I think by, like I said, signing Hollywood Brown just kind of opened the door for really they can do anything, because they just really need to just build depth kind of across, really across the board. Because I'm looking at, like, you're looking at about 10 guys that were probably, depth pieces that they did not re-sign and still pending free agents, across like running back, a couple wide receivers, a defensive end, and a linebacker. So really, I just think that's kind of what the focus of the draft will be now, is just probably the best value, barring any other signings, probably just the best value at whatever position that or tackle is, there, just to add depth, and maybe you find your next replacement guy and, you can move on from someone elsewhere. I mean, like, because we saw them trade up and take McDuffie 2 years ago, and I wouldn't have told you that they needed a cornerback. Like, that wasn't the biggest need, but they traded up because McDuffie was a beast and fell, and they knew that Buffalo wanted him, so they had to get in front of Buffalo. And in that scenario, who traded with him? I'm pretty sure the Patriots, probably to say, yeah, this would be a fun FU to Buffalo. Like, we'll do this with you.
Yeah. Thanks, Patriots.
Yeah. No, and just to Rich, before you go, just so that I can add on to that, and I know Raider guys, all the Raider Nation people think I'm being friendly to Kansas, but I'm just speaking facts. But at number 32, you could go get a guy like Tyler Guyton, and Tyler Guyton is a guy that can play both of those ends, and he balled out at the Senior Bowl. He was dominating everybody. So honestly, man, that the Hollywood Brown move was the move that made everybody go, great. What are you going to do now? Offer Mike Williams $2 million and then he's going to come here too? So thank goodness Mike Williams liked that New York Jets sandwich. I don't know if you guys saw that clip where he was eating somebody from New Jersey sent them this amazing sandwich, and then he took a bite on the sandwich and he said, oh, this is why I'm going to sign the deal right now. This sandwich is amazing. So thank you, Mike Williams, for leaving the division. Goodbye.
So I'm going to kind of jump into just a little bit of the Broncos roster, which I saw a comment here. Yes, I do expect that the Broncos are not going to do particularly well this season. I think that this is a culture year. So I think what you're going to probably start to see is a turnaround in terms of certain elements of the team, but regression in other elements of the team. But you're going to see certain guys step into their roles and actually own those roles. And then as the year goes on, I think you'll start seeing kind of some stacked wins near the end. But ultimately, I think it'll be too little, too late for anything substantive. But that's kind of how I generally predict the Broncos season going, and that's what happens when you're attempting to rebuild a culture. Frankly, I think the Chargers are also going to be in a similar position because they are trying to turn. They're trying to turn stuff around. They're trying to get a culture established and stack blocks kind of one on top of another to kind of allow that foundation to build. So when I look at the Denver Broncos, I think that we are in an interesting spot. I think that we don't necessarily need to really look at wide receiver per se. I think that we have enough of them on the roster that are good and with enough diversity in terms of skill sets that we will do okay. I said it on this show last year going into this season. Alex, you'll probably remember this. Jalen Virgil was the one guy, in my opinion, that Sean Payton had big plans for, and then he got hurt in preseason in the early stage of the year. And I think there was many 4-letter words said by Sean Payton because he seems like a Sean Payton type guy. He's that under the radar dude that's got wicked speed and good height. And I think that he was going to be working with him on sharp, crisp routes to try to get him in certain spots at certain places. You saw him come on the end of his first year with the Broncos, where he got open and caught some nice touchdowns when he was when Hackett was here. And I think that Sean Payton was just like, man, if you can do that in that system, man, I got some plans for you. And I think he got hurt as a result, and it really kind of tanked some of the plans that Payton had for him at the wideout position. Where I think is going to be the most interesting thing for the Denver Broncos is going to be the offensive line. What the team has already shown that they're basically willing to kick the trash out the door, regardless of the contract. Like they've already shown it. Like, we own the worst trade in NFL history right now, objectively speaking.
It's not objective. It's the worst trade in NFL history.
No, but it is objectively the worst trade. Like there is no, but if you look at it from this way, there is no other angle. There is one angle.
It's bad.
Yeah, it's bad.
It's bad. Okay.
So interestingly enough, there's been lots of talk around Garrett Bowles and kind of his status with the team, given his higher salary and questionable play on the field. While he hasn't been called, he hasn't really been super hurt, really, if we're going to be honest. He's had a couple games here, a couple games there. But it's more, if you actually look at the tape, if the refs ever started calling holding calls, he would be right back where he was in the early stages of his career. And because he hasn't really improved that element of his game as much as at least I would prefer. And so then the question becomes, who fills in for him? And do we draft a guy to maybe replace him? Does it become a draft day trade? I don't know. I'm just throwing some things out there. We do have a guy that I was very excited about last year, who was just a college free agent in 23 by the name of Alex Plazlowski. He really looked great in the preseason games where we saw him just before he ended up getting hurt with a kind of a very fluke injury. I'm not really concerned about him being injury prone unless he kind of repeats something like that again this season, which I don't expect he will. But he really could be that kind of unknown dark horse candidate on the roster there that most people don't know, but he could be filling in. He could be that guy that just no one understands, or no one, like, why is that guy starting? How did that happen? And I could see him kind of being filling in that role. We also brought in a guy from the New York Giants by the name of Matt Pert. He was a 2020 third round pick. It'll be interesting to kind of see where he fits in the Broncos' plans. A lot of talk around him being a swing tackle. in my opinion, that the biggest thing that we need to start doing is shoring up the offensive line to get a set of starting five solidified and then starting to build depth behind them so that we can start doing what the good teams do, which is you get your starters, you find like the one or two staple guys on the line that you kind of pay in perpetuity until they're ready to retire. And then you rotate in really good guys as starters, and then you get the depth pieces behind them to learn from the good guys as starters. And then you can start rotating through those guys so you never end up with too much going into the line at any given moment. The bad teams always end up having to go and overpay for an entire line of overpriced free agents, and it almost never works out. Almost never works out.
It's interesting to me, Rich, because I know you're getting near the end of what you're saying, that you've totally dodged quarterback as a subject. Because I mean, I'm not a Broncos expert, but you have, is it Stidham and PJ Walker? Is that?
No,
who is
Ben
it?
DiNucci, baby.
Oh, Ben
my
DiNucci.
God.
Okay,
You have
all right.
Ben DiNucci.
He's got some professional experience.
He's not even the best
All-Star
Italian
Ben
to play for the
DiNucci.
Giants.
Okay, so XFL All-Star Ben DiNucci and Stidham.
He was on the Cowboys.
Oh, okay. He
Oh,
was,
that's
okay.
right,
All right.
Cowboys
Nice,
time.
nice. I like all the experience he's getting. At number
on Hard
12,
Knocks.
I mean, it was just interesting. Like Daniel Jeremiah did his mock draft 3.0, which he picked insanity. And he had Brock Bowers going to the Broncos.
That
So
would be bad.
I don't know, man. I mean, I thought that I don't know. I thought correct minds would get together and say, you know, we could really use this number 12 pick to give us more picks since we're going to be losers this year anyways. What are you doing with that number 12 pick, and what are you doing to address your quarterback? Are you waiting for the next great Canadian Football League star to be the guy? What's going on?
Well, we are in Colorado, so we do get snow. So, I mean, there is some synergies there between Canada and Colorado, which is why when I visit there, I really don't feel I'm that far away from home, because like a lot of the weather and stuff is similar, and the outdoor atmosphere is very similar to what I have here where I am. And I'm not even in like the city. I'm like way out. So it's, I get some wicked bad weather and stuff here. So, but I digress. The one thing here that I think a lot of non-Broncos fans missed last season when the Broncos did what they did is when the Broncos pulled Russ and put in Stidham, he was put into a very, very, very bland, edited down, poor version of a Sean Payton offense. And the offensive line and the receivers and the running backs and basically all of the other guys on the team had already been kind of coached and had assimilated themselves to that watered down version of the Sean Payton offense. Stidham is a much better processor of the football field than Russell Wilson is, in my opinion.
True.
I
totally agree. Totally agree.
Like that. Russell Wilson is not known for sitting there and saying slicing.
He's not a processor, man.
No,
he is.
No,
I did an entire thing with Robert where I was literally scolding him as to why Aiden O'Connell was better than Russell Wilson
He's
now.
He's
Oh,
just
no, look,
not.
look.
No, we're not having
Stop
this
it,
discussion
Robert.
again, Angelo.
For everybody who wants to see that episode, just go back to the Captain Jack channel. It's the one where Robert Garcia is a part of it. And you guys were eviscerating him. But anyways, quiet, Robert. I'm talking to Rich. My conversations with Rich. I 100% agree with you about Jared Stidham. And I can also say that because he played for us.
Yeah.
And I was kind of hoping.
Once a Raider, always a Raider.
Yeah.
You know, once a Raider, always a Raider. He's one of the good
I
ones.
listen.
So my whole point is we don't really know just yet how Stidham is going to look when the playbook is open, when he's asked to actually process and then execute on the football field, make calls at the line. And I think what you're probably going to see is he'll be making the calls at the line, but he'll be doing it within a very kind of controlled box, if you will, to kind of ensure that he doesn't stray too far outside of, what's going to work for him. And really, that's actually a strength of Sean Payton. Like that's Sean Payton's game. Like he's like, hey Russ, you're really not that good at like figuring stuff
You
out.
suck.
So
Yeah.
and because I can't have you play with stilts or have phone books behind the line of scrimmage to have you see over top of people, we're going to completely modify this offense to allow you to not look like complete trash on the field. But at the same time, what we did see from the Denver Broncos, especially when we played a very, very gifted mind in Bill Belichick on the defensive side of the ball, is Bill Belichick looked at it and said, oh, I'm going to have fun. He's like, this is going to be so fun. He goes, because you can't see the middle of the field, so I'm not going to cover the middle of the field. And then I'm going to basically double and triple cover everyone on the outside. And then I'm going to watch the little man run around and not be able to make a throw. And that's literally what happened. Is all of the pressure came from up the middle because they just rushed all the linebackers up the middle of the field and collapsed the pocket. And then Russ had all the double coverages on the outside and couldn't make a throw. And that's what we didn't do very well against the Patriots, that every other Broncos fan, except for me, had as a guaranteed win. And I was like, dude, we're getting eviscerated by the Patriots. Like, we're going to get absolutely slaughtered because nobody is giving credit to Bill Belichick and the fact that he is just that darn smart when it comes to defense. Like, he is at the top of the NFL, and Vic Fangio is kind of along with him. Like those two guys are like.
Side note: has anyone watched The Dynasty on Apple TV?
No.
If not,
no.
They are doing Belichick so dirty in that thing.
Wow.
They definitely did not make him look good.
So basically, a lot of non-Broncos fans and those that are kind of more, I look at flashy stats that are kind of in that vein when it comes to NFL analytics. They're all screaming and pounding the table to say the Broncos need to get a quarterback. The Broncos need to get a quarterback. The real issue is we need to build a team and a roster that is sustainable for long-term success. And then at that point there's nothing wrong with you doing what the Chiefs did and trade 2-3 firsts to get your, maybe 2 firsts and a second or whatever, to get yourself back up into that top end of the draft to go grab your guy. But you need to have the team, the line, and the culture built up on the roster if you're ever going to succeed. And the Broncos are still in building mode when it comes to those two things. And so bringing in a quarterback to that, I would be afraid, actually, you would be pulling what some of the bad teams in the NFL do, is they throw what could be good quarterbacks into the fire. And then rather than having them learn how to cook, they basically burn and die.
Yeah, which is great, because before Robert talks about, before you get to Robert, I will say, like, Justin Herbert, even though he was thrown into that crazy Brandon Staley fire, is one of those guys where he's the guy. He's the dude. What a pick, man. What a pick.
Right.
But
Phoenix. He was a Phoenix. Like, if you're going to be honest, he was a Phoenix. And Robert, I don't care your powder blue glasses on or not. No one thought that a dude that was above average, but still only just above average in college, who didn't do some of the things he's doing now with the Chargers, no one expected him to be able to be thrown into that fire and be like, hold my beer, I got this.
Yeah. No, he's really,
no one.
He's really good. Like, he's really, like, when I think about that 2021 draft in where, what was it, like 6 quarterbacks or some crazy number all went into top 15, and like the only one left is Trevor Lawrence. And in all honesty, like, I like Trevor Lawrence too, coming out of Clemson, but this is my whole point about when you spend so much of your capital or you do whatever you need to do and you think you got the guy, like Rich said, unless you supported that guy, you'll still lose in a playoff game, or you still won't make it because injuries are real and there's all these things. So, Zach Wilson was thrown into the fire. To be fair, I mean, I don't dislike the kid, but I think, for example, if you're going to throw him away anyways, give him to the Raiders, because I bet you as a backup, as a third QB for us, he's going to do better because we're going to love him up.
Not enough soccer moms in Las Vegas.
Yeah, well, that's true. That is true.
I don't know.
But he goes a little north to Reno, he might find a couple.
Well, same thing for Justin Fields. I would argue that Justin Fields was not loved up, right? And Mac Jones, Mac Jones had that one great year with Josh McDaniels, but he wasn't really loved up, right? You know, and I mean, like, there's a lot of these quarterbacks that are moving right now that it's interesting to me where it's like, okay, we'll see what happens, you know, because I mean, when I get to talk about what I'm going to talk about, I mean, I think it's kind of cool that we have Gardner Minshew. I still believe that AOC4 will beat him, but I think it's cool if he is the starter. Either way, works for me because that's not what our focus is. Our focus is on defense. But sorry, go ahead.
Let's put it this way. I don't think there's too many Ryan Tannehills out there who were mediocre on their first team. Dare I say, were really bad actually at moments on that first team, and then get put in a system that they just kill it. And like there's just, that doesn't happen in today's NFL like it did yesteryear. Yeah, like in the past, that was more commonplace where you'd have a dude that kind of went to one team, didn't do particularly well, and then was able to be picked up by another and then kind of revitalize their career. And there's some Hall of Fame quarterbacks actually that followed that path from, you know, years past. You just don't see it in today's NFL. These quarterbacks are coming into the league from the NFL, having thrown so many passes at the college level now, which they didn't get that benefit when they were coming out of college back when those types of quarterbacks were in play. You're just, it's basically you either work or you don't. And that's effectively what happens. But every so often you find a Tannehill who, you know, really was probably better than he showed when he was with the Dolphins, for example. And showed up when he
also had an amazing running game with the Titans, right, Rich?
And Derrick Henry.
He had a team.
Here you go, buddy.
He had a one-man team.
He fit that scheme of like they played off of the play action, and that's I mean that's the biggest thing with the quarterback is, you know, what they're getting drafted into and what they're trying to do with them. I mean, you see these guys that get drafted in the wrong scheme, and they're like, oh, they'll figure it out because they were good in college, and then they don't.
Yeah, and so that's kind of my point is there. And so when it comes to the Denver Broncos quarterback, just on the offensive side of my team, I wouldn't be super surprised if we don't draft a quarterback and we start building kind of the trenches and the lines rather than.
That would be the smart move, Rich.
That
trade
would be
down.
Well, I don't even know if I'd want to fully trade down like that, because if you're looking at the long-term options there, you have the potential of getting a franchise right tackle to get rid of and replace McGlinchey for the long term.
Who are you thinking about taking there at number 12? That you think
Waga.
Oh, damn it!
Would you take JPJ at 12?
You think? I thought he was going to get taken.
Yeah, you would. Yeah,
I think the other thing with staying at 12 too is, I mean, if this draft plays out like a lot of people think, you're going to have a lot of teams trading up for a QB. So then by Denver staying put, you're arguably getting your pick of, you know, a top prospect that's not a quarterback, because you know 6 teams went for one.
If all the rumors are true,
and the interior defensive line is another option at that pick as well. To get an interior pressure pass rush style guy that the Broncos really haven't had.
Byron Murphy, that's your guy.
He's a guy that I'm eyeing. And so when you look at 12, it all of a sudden becomes the value pick for you, which is, yes, I can trade back, but what am I trading back to get? Would it not make more sense for me to pick a guy that is probably closer to a can't miss prospect, given the fact that everyone wants a quarterback? And they traded up to get him. And then we're going to kind of zig when everyone else zags, but we're looking at it from a multi-year process instead of saying we need to do it right here, right now, and that's it. I think that's kind of where I'm at with it.
Sure, it's too bad Sean Payton's the leader, though. So we'll see what he does.
I think
trading everything to go get JJ McCarthy.
I think you guys are in a solid situation, though, in the draft, because kind of like where the Chargers are in a sense, you're more than complacent staying at 12. But if somebody comes and offers you a pretty nice little haul to move up to 12, if there's somebody they love, I feel like they take that in a heartbeat, because you guys, like you said, you're trying to rebuild those lines. You're trying to start in the trenches. So you only do that with more picks you have. And I feel like the Broncos don't have if they were in need of something insanely desperately, not named QB, they would go for it. But because you have so many positions and that dead cap that you're still looking at Russ, I agree with your approach. You take the non-sexy picks and you build out that line. So even if Stidham, has to rock with y'all for a year or two, at least he's not getting his head ripped off every other play, and maybe you guys have some form of offense behind a decent line.
That's exactly it. And then when we start looking at the defensive side of the ball, we brought in Cody Barton from Washington, who was an absolute tackling machine for them, and I suspect that he is going to fill in quite nicely for the outlaw Josie Jewell.
Yeah.
Now, Jewell was never my favorite pick. I always felt that he was a little slow, but what you started to see from Josie Jewell is the game started to slow down for him because he started to process the field much faster. And so you started to see anticipation from him to make up for his athleticism or the lack thereof compared to the others. And he started to almost look faster, even though he wasn't. He was just processing the game so much quicker that he wasn't hesitating before he had to do things because he just knew it.
Yeah, and Sean Payton would love to have him at QB.
Right, yeah. Anyways, Cody Barton, I think, is going to fill in really nicely there. Baron Browning was actually starting to look fairly good at edge, which he'll be back as well. Which
He's pretty solid.
Yeah,
Nick
Browning.
Benito was also starting to take those next steps. No, he wasn't, blow the doors off as an edge rusher, but he had moments. Bonito. But he had moments where he really did do well, and he started to show that he was improving. So now the question is, can he continue that improvement, or is he going to flatline? And I think that's a fair comment to make. And then Brandon Jones as the free safety is another one who I'm very, very interested to see play that spot alongside Caden Stearns, who I have not made it a secret that I actually wanted him to start last year over Justin Simmons. So I actually think that that's going to be a great tandem. And everyone else basically is coming back.
Justin Simmons hasn't signed with anyone else yet, right?
Nope. Richie was onto it when he called it. As soon as he released him. Nobody wants him, which is crazy.
Man, we would take him if he kept saying
for like $5 million.
If he would rescind all of his "I hate the Raiders" comments.
Yeah, and then the Phillies ended up getting CJG
Gardner Johnson back.
Yeah, Gardner, yeah. So he's not going there anymore. But yeah, kind of leading into what we're looking at. Obviously, the biggest move that I did not see this one coming, and it hit me like a ton of bricks. I did not really expect to move on from Keenan Allen in this regard.
Man, he looked good in Bears gear today at the USC.
Shut the hell up. Shut the hell up. No, he did not. Don't even try to lie to me and tell me that he did.
He was dabbing it up with Caleb Williams' dad.
Man, he don't want to be there. Did you see that video of him when he first landed that the Bears posted? That man does not want to be in Chicago. He is so miserable. But I digress. At the end of the day, it's a business. I mean, the example I always use, because it's so true. I mean, Tom Brady didn't even retire in New England. So if
it just goes to show you how the Chargers do business,
Oh, get out of here!
You had your best year ever. Would you like to take a pay cut?
This is the what happens when a new regime comes in, and what a lot of Chargers fans maybe didn't realize this was going to happen, and maybe myself, included in that. I really was holding out hope that at least this would be the one guy the new regime kept. I really didn't think it was going to be the two people on the defensive side of the ball. That being said, the draft need, the number one draft need, is glaring for the Chargers at this point. And it's basically MHJ or bust at 5. I don't
wait. Before you go on, the Daniel Jeremiah mock draft came out.
Okay, dude.
Every mock draft
I want to set the table before Robert goes on his rant. I'm just saying that I've done this show, a Trencher show on Captain Jack's channel, with a Harbaugh guy, a Harbaugh expert
Not taking a
who
tackle.
knows everything about Michigan. And everyone from him to Daniel Jeremiah have all been saying Harbaugh likes to build the trenches. And what happens in Daniel Jeremiah's mock draft 3.0? Oh, Harbaugh traded down to go get Fuaga at 10 and
Not
gave up Marvin
He
Harrison
also had the
because he
Raiders
could care less.
Michael Penix at 13. Do you agree with that?
I'm going to talk about it when it's
Do
my
you?
turn. I
Do
will
you
talk
agree with
about it.
that though? But do you agree with
I
that?
do. I will not rescind from what I've been saying since December, which is Fuaga at
Exactly.
at first pick is
So
Fuaga.
why would the Chargers trade down or take a tackle when they have Rashawn Slater and $9 million?
Yes.
Because Rashawn
and then why would they
Slater,
get rid of Keenan Allen and Mike Williams?
That right there.
Hold on. Time out. I'll tell you.
Else.
No, I'll tell you why. Because Rashawn Slater still needs a bookend. And at the end of the day, it is about protecting Justin Herbert. If you don't protect Justin Herbert, that finger injury will become more injuries. And
you
that's
can protect him all
why.
you want. And if he has no one to complete a pass to, it's not going to matter.
Thank you.
Like seriously speaking, I know he loves this MHJ idea, but
not even just MHJ, but like we need a receiver at this point.
And you can receiver. You can literally get Brian Thomas Jr. later. You can get
no. We do not need a second or a
That's
third.
apples to oranges, though.
Yeah, you need a goddamn number
you
one
need
option.
The clear,
okay,
you need the bell
you need
cow.
Marvin Harrison Jr. You need Malik Neighbors, and if you trade back and take Rome Odunze, I'm good with that. But if Marvin Harris, that is priority number one for this team right now. You do not go. Have you seen what our wide receiver depth chart is right now? We have a kick returner playing wide receiver 3. Josh Palmer is don't even get me started on Quentin Johnston.
Guyton's pretty good, I hear.
Harbaugh called him like Quentin.
Guyton's not on the team anymore. What do you?
He's not. That's right.
Yeah,
That's right.
we are. It is wide receiver with the number with
Travis
our first.
Benjamin back.
Yeah, bring back Travis Benjamin. Yeah, we gotta go re-sign a couple of these old receivers. No, dude, it's wide receiver at 1. That's the biggest need. Moving on to the other needs, I'm not as. I'm okay with this.
DZ.
I'm good with this, DZ.
Trust me, man. I'm gonna bust out some serious facts later. But go ahead.
For some of the signings we made, I love the Bozeman signing. I thought that was just a perfect match for us. It was a 1-year deal. He was a former Raven, was there with Roman, so I really liked the move. It was a cheaper deal, but we needed to address that, if not in the draft, in free agency. And shit, you don't make all that cap space to not go and spend in free agency. So I'm glad that we are making some moves. They may not be the biggest, splashiest, but this team is going to look insanely different this year. It's going to be a run first team. And just because people hear that and they think, oh, Herbert's going to have a terrible year and Herbert's, he's not going to look like Herbert's going to be fine. Okay. Herbert is the one thing on this team pretty much in this entire Staley era that has been consistent. And I know he's had bad games. I know he's had games where, okay, yeah, he played poorly. He threw some bad passes. But you know what? I take those bad games because in all the other games that he basically laid himself on the line for us to win or even have a chance in it, and the defense and coaching staff just continuously let him down week after week after week, I'm not worried about Herbert. Everybody's saying, like, Herbert this, Herbert, nah. If your biggest concern going into next season for the Chargers is Justin Herbert, you need to seriously reevaluate and watch this team closely again. I don't even say that to like through powder blue glasses, but seriously, if you look at this team the last 2 years and you think Herbert was the biggest reason for their failures, you just don't know football. Like I'm sorry, that's not to be rude, but he needs consistency in the coaching staff, which he should have now. He needs consistency in the run game, which I'm not even saying he needs a 1,000-yard rusher. Like, he just needs somebody.
Blake Corum, man, relax.
Yeah, listen, if we get Blake Corum in the 4th round, 3rd, whatever, I'm fine with that. The biggest need that we need to address on offense is wide receiver. That is priority 1. You do not move off that until that is addressed. That being said, moving over to the defensive side of the ball, I really don't think you need to do too much in this draft. The biggest thing that we need to focus on the defensive side in this draft is interior D-line. You need to get insanely young and get a ton of depth just in the D-line in general, but especially in those nose tackle positions. Definitely need to get something like that. I know we signed Poona Ford from the Seahawks. That's a big boy, so I like that signing. It'll stuff up the one. We were just talking about this in our last show last week when we were talking about, the big guys up front. Just having that big body as a D tackle is going to help a ton in the run defense. So I like it, but there is still so much more work that needs to be done. Cornerback. We need to address cornerback because right now it's Asante Samuel Jr. and Dean Leonard. People don't even know who Dean Leonard is, and at least some people
Harbaugh
know.
might move Derwin James, the cornerback. You never know.
No, he probably could. He probably could. Like Derwin probably could play corner, but I think Derwin will maintain his safety role. He'll maintain that strong safety role. I know I'm kind of rambling here, but I think just after this bombshell that dropped because I really was going into this draft and even into this offseason already in my mind that Keenan Allen was going to be here. So to have him leave, I mean, it's just such a kick in the gut. Like, I honestly, I never would have envisioned this is where we're at now in the offseason, because the offense looks horrible right now. Like, I don't even want to sugarcoat it. The offense looks terrible because
there's a lot of holes.
There's just so many holes on that offensive side of the ball, and it's not even just starting roles, it's depth roles that we need to fill. And that's the thing that's plagued us every year. We cannot draft for depth to save our lives. So this draft will be very, very telling, and this year will be very, very telling as to how this front office is going to be. Cool. Yeah, pretty much. I guarantee.
Liking all of these. John Leon saying Chargers' biggest concern should be, there you go. Could be the
Raiders' biggest concern should be getting more than
pouring it on, guys. This is so fun. Robert was so optimistic 2 Sundays ago on the Captain Jack show,
man,
for 2 hours, and then now look at him, man.
Harbaugh said, "Hold my beer."
Hold my beer.
This is what a Charger fan looks like.
Oh. I still got faith because we have the QB, obviously, and that's like the one position where if you have that, you
got that figured out.
Yeah, you got that figured out. You got the head coach, so I'm not like, at least we're not the Raiders right now. Like, it could be worse. Like, don't get me wrong.
Wow.
But we're gonna we're gonna. I definitely feel like we're gonna improve first of all this year, and it's just gonna be completely different. It's gonna be a completely different style of team. The draft picks I think we're even going to take are going to be foreign to Chargers fans. We're used to just grabbing the no names. I feel like if there really is somebody that is of high value sitting at 5, or if we trade back and there's somebody at high value that's sitting at that position that we trade back to, I feel like we're going to make the right call and not go for position of need. So fucking Rich. Can't even keep a straight face, man.
Like, what's this?
To be fair for everyone here, this was just an intentional bomb, as Robert was talking. It was just well timed and well planned.
He's only going to be there for a year, right? Do you really think Allen's going to be there longer than one season?
I think it depends on how long he wants to play football for. And I also think it depends on if they nab Williams and if they start building chemistry.
Yeah.
Because that's the one thing, though. That's the low key thing that people aren't realizing is they basically have guaranteed that they're picking their guy who they think is their quarterback at number 1, and they've now brought in an Allen who has proven to be that bell cow wide receiver to pair with a rookie quarterback, and so.
On top of DJ Moore.
Yeah, and if they start gelling with the quarterback and the 2 wideouts, I could totally see Allen saying
they could still end up taking Roma Dunze at 9, which is insane too. I mean, they could either super tool the offense for Caleb Williams, or They can go get, I don't
Which
know,
would
a
be
guy by the name of
savage.
Dallas Turner, who's like a monster wrecker.
That'd be savage if they do, because they didn't do that for Fields.
Yeah. Fields
Yeah.
looking at this roster that they're building for him, like, oh wow,
Dang.
yeah, gee,
Yeah.
thanks.
So is that it,
Yeah,
Robert?
that was
Are you
good.
defeated?
Yeah,
Are you done?
that's my little spiel. Obviously,
Okay.
you know, trading
Yeah,
Allen just kind of threw a whole
Are
wrench
you,
at
are
everything.
you done?
All right. Good. I'm glad. I got a little bit more time then. That's good. Thank you very much for giving it to me. All right, Raider Nation. So here you go. This will be your final soliloquy off of Raider Transplant before I head off to the great unknown of transplant recovery for the month of April. I wish these three well. To all the people who've been questioning why we would not be number one in the West for 2024, all I can provide for you is actual stats. That's all I can do. I can't like make up things.
You're gonna bust
All I
out
can do is
college
give you
stats
stats. All right. And statistically speaking, for the division, when Antonio Pierce took over, his record is 3 wins, 1 loss. The 1 loss being the one that we screwed up against the Chiefs. So we could have easily been 4-0 when we were ahead 14-0 against Kansas City. But again, I digress because all we're speaking here is facts. Moving into next season, I believe that Rich or Robert wouldn't disagree that there's no way if their team even beats us one of those games, I would be shocked if the Chargers and the Broncos don't just do a goose egg against the Raiders, because there's no way we're losing to a Broncos team that is basically handicapped because of the Russell Wilson fiasco. And there's no way we're losing to the Chargers unless Harbaugh literally can walk on water. Because when Harbaugh took over the Niners, for all of you who are statistically looking over everything, he had a pretty good defense. Chargers don't have jack right now. They got tons of holes.
Yeah,
so
he's also
Harbaugh
got
being
the
a great
best quarterback ever.
Quiet.
Did you want to leave that out?
Quiet. You're ruining my soliloquy. You can eat it. All right. There's no way that the Chargers and the Broncos are going to beat the Raiders in any games this year. So that's an easy 4-0 for us. So now we go mano a mano with the champs. And I got to give respect to the champs, man. I mean, like, I honestly didn't think Patrick Mahomes was going to do what he did and only get paid like $21 million this year or something insane to go be a team player. But he's serious about being a dynasty. And the Chiefs, I got to give them credit, man. They're dead ass serious about getting this three-peat. And the 49ers messed that up, as we know. Roger Craig fumble is what it gets blamed on, but there are many other reasons, like Belichick's defense for the Giants, as to why the Niners couldn't do it. The Cowboys couldn't do it, but that was the whole Jerry Jones and the coaching fiasco there, right? So I'm trying to think of all the other teams that could have tried. So the Chiefs has a legit chance to actually do it, except, and this is the exception. You see, normally, and I can only give you again what I know, which is the fight game, which is in box. I'm going to give a boxing analogy to. There were people that were saying Marvin Hagler's their favorite fighter. So there was a time when Mike Tyson was so dominant that he would walk in, wear those sockless black shoes with the black trunks, with the towel over his body. And the guy that's supposed to be the champion or even the number one contender was just so scared, so frightened that no chance. And in fact, most people wouldn't know this if you're not a boxing aficionado, but when Michael Spinks fought Mike Tyson, he was actually pound for pound the best fighter in the world at the time. He was like Roy Jones in so many ways during that era. You have to really understand the factual significance of why Tyson destroying Michael Spinks was such a big deal. And like I said, like, if we were scared of the Chiefs, if we were frightened of them because our coaching was terrible, or we didn't have swagger, or we didn't make the moves that we've made to make our, I don't even want to argue that he's our best player, our Michael Jordan, our best player, Max Crosby, the guy who just signed a Jordan Brand contract, the guy who's going to have his own Jordan Brand shoes. We surrounded pieces around him. This feels like that Chicago Bulls era when Jordan needed his Pippen, needed his Horace Grant, needed his John Paxson. That's what we're doing. And this is why, for everybody who keeps thinking that offense being sexy is what wins you a division, when it has been proven in the NFL that defense is what wins you the division. The Ravens did it, as an example, which, oh, by the way, one of our coaches who happens to also be the assistant head coach, essentially, is Marvin Lewis. Oh, what did Marvin Lewis do? Oh, that's right. Marvin Lewis was the architect of that defense. But hey, man, what do I know? Because, like there's an old guy who's like the therapist sounding board to our head coach, Antonio Pierce, who just happens to be Tom Coughlin. And what did that guy do? Oh, that's right. That guy beat the Patriots twice. And by the way, I mean, like, what do I know? Because all I can actually do, Angelo, is speak facts that Antonio Pierce, who is the undrafted linebacker who became the captain to the team that beat arguably the greatest team in NFL history, the 17-0 Patriots. And that's our head coach. So when it comes to attitude and when it comes to not believing that we can take down the Chiefs, we already did it. In fact, we're the last team to do it. In fact, we almost did it twice. So since I'm just speaking facts, this is why we're going to win the AFC West division. But let me go ahead and break down the roster for people who don't understand how facts work. Let me go ahead and break it down for you. All right. When it comes to the defense, I think everyone involved here. Oh, great. Yeah, of course you're going to. Go ahead. Yeah, that's fine. This is fine. This is my last show. You're not going to see me anyways. All right. Locked on defense coach. All right. You're not going to see me anyway. So it'll be captain's job to go ahead and set you guys straight. But I promise you, Rich, we can make that deal that when the Raiders are looking like they are actually winning the division, bring me back on so I could stick it to everybody and tell them I told you this was going to happen. And I'm only bringing up facts because you can attack me if I was smoking a pipe and I was dreaming of this magical world of us winning.
I have no idea what you did before the show.
All right. I'm only speaking facts. There was a time when I was about to go into my freshman year of high school in where we had a coach. The Raiders had a coach by the name of Mike Shanahan. Genius, by the way, Mike Shanahan. But an interim coach took over. And that interim coach's name is Art Shell. Raider legend, third-round draft pick in the 1968 draft. But anyways, let me digress. The very next year, when he was the full-time coach, we won the division, and he won 12 games. And only because I believe, if I'm not mistaken, a guy by the name of, Bo Jackson hurt himself. We probably would have won the Super Bowl, but whatever, man. You got to be a Raider.
You got an awful lot of ifs, and if this happens.
No. Hey, man, I let you. Was I not nice to all of you when you had your turn? This is my turn. All right, this is my turn. So, again, I got to go over the what's going on with our roster because that is what the theme of the show is. We already talked about the Christian Wilkins signing, and yes, I will agree that maybe Christian Wilkins does not show the stats that it shows. What the eye test does show us is if you pair up anyone decent, yeah, go ahead, man. That's fine. But believe me, if you go to a Raider show, you're going to get eviscerated the same way Robert got eviscerated. So you can keep talking your smack on this show, though. That's fine. If you pair a decent person with Max Crosby, we still tend to end the year last year in the top 10 for defense. Now you pair him up with Christian Wilkins, and not only that, but I mean, we brought back Adam Butler, we brought back John Jenkins, two of the very people that were actually doing extremely well in the later part of the year. And sure, cornerback, some could say, well, you still have a hole there. I don't know, man. I still think a lot of people are sleeping on Jacorian Bennett And because we do have the number 13 pick, I don't know. I saw Antonio Pierce talking to Terrion Arnold today. Maybe he's the pick. Quinion Mitchell, I like him. I wouldn't be mad if we took him at number 13. So again, I'm all about that defense. I'm all about that trenches. I mean, heck, man, if we ended up picking up a Byron Murphy at number 13, though it sounds like we're overdoing it, I honestly wouldn't be that angry, because I honestly believe that we're going to be a top 5 defense going into when we're talking about the West Coast, the AFC West. There's no way that the Chargers offense is going to be, I mean, we beat them. We scored 63 on, we almost broke the record on the Chargers. So why are we even talking about them being a problem for us? They don't even have wide receivers.
Backup QB.
The Chargers, the QB he's going to throw it to, no wide receivers, and there's nobody protecting them. And then Denver,
the backup throwing it to your team.
And then Denver, who doesn't even have a quarterback right now other than Stidham, they're dealing with Virgil and Mims. So I'm not worried about them. So again, this comes back down to the Chiefs,
in fair,
right?
no, but you're also discounting other players that are on the team. Cortland Sutton has.
You're also grossly upgrading your own quarterback.
Yes.
See how you guys see what's unfair about this show? What's unfair is I literally backed you guys up and I let you talk, and now I'm telling you my factual thing.
Well,
that's not facts.
I'm giving you the runway to speak, but at the same time, you will recall when I came on and spoke my piece. And for the record, you're picking number 13, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Where are my Denver Broncos picking?
You're number 12. You might get Fuaga over us, which is
no. That's not what I'm saying. Although, yes, that is possible.
In the same spot.
My point is that my first comment was, I think my team's not going to do well this year. Why? Because we didn't do particularly well last year, and we have some challenges coming up.
Right, and the difference between that's fair. That's fair. And the difference between your team.
Let me stack my point, and I'm happy to be told that I'm wrong. As long as you can actually provide facts and not.
I will provide actual facts. Go ahead.
Yeah, the word "if" is not included in a fact. Just for the record. So, and then you look at where Robert's team is. Robert's team is obviously picking quite high in the draft as a result of not doing particularly well last year.
Trading down, but sure, go ahead.
Right, but the thing is, they are. But it doesn't matter where they are going to end up in the draft. The point is their pick is at number 5.
Right.
They are at number 5 because they did not do well last year.
Right.
As a result, they are likely not going to do tremendously well this year because they have much work to do, because you don't pick 5th in the draft if you are a really good team. And the Chargers have traded away a bunch of pieces to try to get themselves leaner so they could try to set themselves up for success in future years.
I heard the spiel of the sad Chargers fan. Go ahead. Get to your point so I can go ahead and
you are picking at number 13 as a result of not doing particularly well in the 2022
So let's go ahead and talk about that fact. Let's actually talk about the fact. Because the fact of the matter is, if Jack Jones doesn't get called for a bogus play, we're in the playoffs. Since we're in the playoffs,
that's an actual fact. Doesn't throw two kicks and give you 14 points, you don't beat the Chiefs.
Angelo, you can't put
that's an actual fact. All the later people know. That's an actual
fact with if. That does not work.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so here is a fact.
Jones got a call and you lost.
Here is a fact, though. Here is a fact that I let you guys talk for all that time, that Robert himself admitted his team's going to suck. Fact or not? That's
not worse than you.
No, that's a fact. Rich himself said his team's not going to be very good. In fact, he started the sentence saying that. That's a fact. So I am now factually telling you so that when you ask me to come back on, when we're winning the division, that I'm going to go, yeah, because I'm not like you guys.
What happened to the if you're winning the division?
Facts. You can go ahead and poo-poo on me all you want if the Raiders don't actually do what they're going to do. But based on historical facts, like when Art Shell took over for a team that was dejected, we went ahead and did it. Just for the fact that we stacked our coaching staff which all of you guys could watch on the Captain Jack Rackham channel. My first episode there was me breaking down how good the coaches are going to be. Then we actually did what we said we would do, which is build the trenches. And now we have someone else on top of the already. It's a fact that we ended top 10 in defense last year in terms of the last few games. That's a fact. That's an actual fact, right? And that's without Christian Wilkins. So now that we have Christian Wilkins, you somehow don't think we believe we will beat the Chiefs at least once? We already beat the Chiefs at least once. In fact, it's a fact that we're the last team to beat the Chiefs. It's an actual fact.
What did that do for you, though? Got you the 13th pick.
I'm not saying facts.
Congrats.
I'm like high on something because all I'm high on is the fact that we beat the Chiefs on Christmas. All I'm high on is the fact that the Broncos hasn't beaten
straight losses
in forever. That the Broncos hasn't beaten us on forever.
Even a broken clock is right twice a day.
We smoked the Chargers so badly that they finally had to revamp their entire team.
Thank you. I appreciate that, by the way. Every Charger fan appreciates that stomping, by the way.
Let's put it this way. My comments are coming from a more balanced perspective. And,
okay, nice.
And most of the Raiders fans who watch Captain Jack know that I think very highly of certain elements of the Raiders roster, and I do, and I've actually given praises.
And you are fair to that, Rich.
To many of the Raiders roster. That said, Max Crosby is not going to be scoring you 28 touchdowns in a season. Like, he's just not. Okay.
I know. If you guys let me get to my offense talk, I would actually get through it. But you guys are so busy thinking that I'm dreaming when I believe that we're going to.
Oh, you're dreaming, my guy.
Okay. You're going to have your own show by then, right, Robert?
So yeah.
Show. Make sure that it's a promise that I get to go on and crap on all your Chargers fans and bring on Noah, who's a Raider fan, who's going to believe me when I say that there's a reason why we're going to win. So if you let me talk about the offense, I'll explain it to you very simply, right?
All right, so let's move on to the Raiders' offensive side of the ball. You have some interesting pieces already on your roster, and I do think that if we're going to be fair, that the Raiders have some questions that need to be answered in terms of what your scheme's going to look like under a new regime with new coaching staff, and which pieces you currently have that are going to fit it, and which ones you will likely find out as a result of all regime changes aren't going to fit it. Because I think that is an absolute fair comment to make across the board. And on top of that, I would argue that the Raiders have similar questions to.
We're talking about offense, right? I just want to make sure that we're talking about offense. Because if you guys try to tell me I'm dreaming about our defense is going to be in the top 10, then we're not even. So we're talking about offense. I just want to make sure we're talking about offense.
Right, and correct. And so, I mean, I can say from a Broncos fan's perspective that, I mean, my team has had top 5 defenses for, I don't know, 3-4 of the last 5 years as a Broncos fan. And I can tell you it landed us top 5 draft picks twice. So, I mean, you can have an absolute, like, statistically elite level defense in the NFL, top 5 is certainly spectacular by all accounts, and still not do as well as you would like.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You're absolutely right.
So in terms of offense, I'd like to kind of get your thoughts on players you think are going to fit the new regime, players that you think you're going to need to replace, and also obviously the quarterback position.
Yeah. So the hard thing about this whole trying to convince you guys who aren't Raider fans, you're talking about an if scenario is, unfortunately, yes, this will be the first time that Antonio Pierce gets to be the head coach all on his own. This is the first time that we've had a whole new group of coaches gelling together. We got a new offensive coordinator in Luke Getsy, right? So I'm only going to speak from a Raider fan perspective when I say that based on the moves that we made on running back in getting Alexander Matheson, banking on Zamir White. I still want to see how well Britton Brown does because I do like a lot of his UCLA tapes. And then, I don't really even want to I don't know what's going to happen with Sincere McCormick, but maybe he'll be around. Maybe he won't. I'm not quite sure. And then we have Amir Abdullah, who's probably the only guy at this point that could probably run a zone running type scheme. I actually don't think that Luke Getsy is going to do zone. I think we're going gap and power. And based on those picks with Madison, White, I think, and that's why I've been so vehemently saying to everyone when it comes to the number 13 pick, if Fuaga is there, that's the guy we're taking. Like, I mean, that's just the guy we're taking because we're running power and we're running gap. And Antonio Pierce has been saying the way we're going to go ahead is bully ball everybody. We're going to win on defense and we're going to bully ball everyone on the run game. And the only way we get to do that is if we run people over. And you don't run people over, unfortunately, right now. I don't think Dalton Wagner is that guy who we have on the reserves contract. He's better at pass blocking than he is at run blocking. I know that a lot of the Raider Nation people who I've guested with all believe in Thayer Mumford, and I like Thayer Mumford, but I don't know if he's really the answer to be the guy, like the guy that's going to be the mean guy. I know that there is still like Dalton Reisner still out there, Mekhi Becton's still out there. We still have almost 30 million in cap space right now, so who knows? But I'm pretty sure that we will address that. And because we have, there's people that weren't excited about Madison. I'm not going to act like I was happy about it because I really thought we were going to go after Deontay Foreman. Well, once all the main players were gone, I thought we were going to go get Deontay Foreman because I thought, oh, are we running zone running or something? But now it's clear to me we're running gap and we're running power. That's what we're doing. So since we're doing running power, running gap, offense wise, we do still have arguably one of the best, if not maybe next year he'll prove it, the best wide receiver in the game. Certainly the best route running wide receiver in the game in Devontae Adams. I liked everything that I saw out of Trey Tucker. I absolutely love Jacoby Myers. And the fact that Jacoby Myers went ahead and restructured his contract just shows you that he wants to be a Raider. And one of the best things about Jacoby Myers is he likes to crack block a lot of people, and he actually calls for runs, right? So he's a Raider. And then we have Christian Wilkinson still on the reserve. We just re-upped DJ Turner, so I think he's going to be one of our wide receivers. But if there's one thing we know about the draft class coming up, wide receiver is aplenty, and we could probably go pick up. And I'm going to be very surprised if we don't address another wide receiver at least in the third round. And in the third round, we can go get someone like Brendan Rice. Oh, hey, Jerry played for the Raiders. Or we could go even get someone like Luke McCaffrey, like in the fourth or in the fifth. I mean, there's so many wide receivers, man. I'm still thinking we might go get Malik Washington, who when I was scouting Malik Washington, I kind of compared him to my Tank Dell. And I would love to have a Tank Dell in our team. That's great. Pair him up with Trey Tucker. So I'm not even really worried about it. So when people keep going, or, I won't say people, I'll say non-Raider fan people who don't believe that our offense is going to be good. I don't need our offense to be in the top 10. I just need our defense to do what they're supposed to do. And our offense I would like to say this, I would like our offense to be top 5 in not turning the ball over. If we can do that, we'll be fine. And here's the best part. When you actually look at turnover rate for Aiden O'Connell and turnover rate for Gardner Minshew, they don't have a very hard turnover rate percentage. And those are our two quarterbacks right now. Anthony Brown's on a reserve, and Anthony Brown is someone who's a project that is going to be, but I don't even know if he'll make the team. Like, I think he's going to end up being in the practice squad. We got Gardner Minshew, who, if there's one thing Gardner Minshew does bring to the table for us, is he's got this just win baby kind of moxie about him. He finds ways to win games. I know he doesn't have the biggest arm, blah, blah, blah. But like I said, man, the way we're going to win games, AP has already said it to everyone. It's like we're showing you our cards. We're literally showing it to you. We're saying to you, barring Max Crosby getting injured, as long as our defense are in the top 10, and our turnover rate is in the top, our non-turnover rate, not turning the ball over, is in the top 5, we're a playoff team. And we're a playoff team mainly because we get to play the Chargers twice, and we get to play the Broncos twice, and we expect to be 4-0 in those games. So really, it's all going to be about the Chiefs. And if we go 1-on-1, if we go 1-1 against the Chiefs schedule, depending on what Goodell does, might be harder than people expect. And if our best case scenario is we'll go 2-0 against the Chiefs, then if we beat all of your teams and we go undefeated, we would win the division, even if our record isn't one of the best records.
Well,
so
yeah,
really,
you're 6-0 in the division.
It's honestly a 2-boxer race for the championship title. It is between the Mike Tyson of the Kansas City Chiefs and the Evander Holyfield of the Las Vegas Raiders. And we kind of know what happened there with Holyfield and Tyson. So I'm just saying. But I Rich, while you were gone, I addressed the offensive part. If you had any more questions about, I'm sorry, guys. I'm sorry to all the Raider fans. I should mention that because we are running that Luke Getsy system in where I explained, I honestly believe we're going to end up running power and gap. One thing that I do like about what Luke Getsy does with his tight ends is he makes them so good they become top 10. Cole Kmet being the most recent example of it. So we're going to have Michael Mayer. I absolutely love that we picked up Harrison Bryant, because Harrison Bryant is a stud when it comes to blocking, but he's pretty good at catching too. He doesn't suck. We have Zach Gentry, who I know he didn't fare well being the 5th round choice when Pittsburgh Steelers took him. But if you watch how he was in Michigan, this guy's like 6'7", 6'8", 265. It's nice to have him on the roster too, right? And then we still have Cole Fotheringham, who is pretty good. So like our tight end room's pretty good. I already addressed that we're going to improve our wide receiver room. And if there's one thing this draft has, it's wide receivers. So we'll address it. We might even address it in the second. Like, I honestly wouldn't be shocked, right? So the last thing I'll say, Rich, is Alex asked me, would I have been happy with Michael Penix at 13? Did you want me to answer that? Or are we out of time and you don't want me to address it?
I'm going to take a guess, and I'm going to say no, you wouldn't be happy with Penix.
I already knew the answer to it. It was rhetorical.
Okay.
What attorneys do, Angelo, they never ask a question they don't already know the answer to.
Okay. What I will say, though, and that way for everyone who's tuning in now and listening, and again, thank you to everybody who's been doing the chats. Yeah. I appreciate you guys. What I'll say is that it is very, very possible that the way this draft goes, because like you said, Rich, earlier in the show, people will panic. And if Williams goes first and then Drake May goes second, right? Like Washington decides to go Drake May. Man, that Patriots pick starts to become really interesting at third, because the Vikings sitting there going, we'll give you number 11, number 23 in our next year's first round. That's 3 number ones to move up to your number 3 right now to go get Jaden Daniels. I can see the Vikings going for that. I don't believe in this whole JJ McCarthy smoke. I think that's just all smoke. But if somebody is actually insane enough to pick him that high, man, there's something that I'm missing then. I mean, I get it. He's a winner. He's only lost 3 games. He's got all the right stuff. He's a good guy. But that's the guy. Like, is Sean Payton crazy enough to trade the farm to go get a JJ McCarthy? I don't know. And that's what I was saying, is that it is possible that if you see it the way Daniel Jeremiah saw it, where you go quarterback, and then McCarthy gets picked quarterback, people are going to panic. And I hope it's not us. But if somebody does take Bo Nix, let's say it's Denver at 12, then gets Bo Nix. I can see a scenario in where Telesco and AP maybe do like Penix. They wanted to wait till the second to get Penix, or possibly trade back up to the first to go get Penix. But then now they're kind of panicky, and then they're like, you know what, man? We could address the O-line another way. Maybe we'll throw some money at Becton and Reisner or something, but no, we can't pass up on Penix. So if that were to happen, Alex, just like us swallowing, when Josh McDaniels got hired, we will swallow Michael Penix. It's fine. Michael Penix isn't horrible. He is the consensus second vote getter for the Heisman. the way he looked against Texas can show you what his pro ceiling is. And yeah, he got destroyed by Michigan, which again, I remind everyone, Jaden Daniels got beat up pretty bad by Alabama, which is why I didn't want to trade for him to go get him anyways. So that's my Michael Penix answer. You know, I wouldn't be like as angry as Robert would be if the Chargers pass up on Marvin Harrison. But
we
you know,
pass
but
on him,
I'm still
I'd be
Rich.
pissed.
I'm still a Fuaga guy, and if Denver takes Fuaga, now all bets are off going into 13. Because at 13, I don't know what the Raiders will do. We can go get Quinion Mitchell. We can go get Terry and Arnold. There's so many different options, but Fuaga is the guy. Fuaga is our guy.
Yeah, I think it's going to be an interesting draft, and I think that the way I look at it is this: the draft I think is going to be interesting for all of the AFC West teams because we all have similar holes on our roster, and we've all had to do interesting things to get our teams under the cap.
Mm-hmm. I really hope that the Broncos take Bo Nix just because he would be reunited with his college teammate instead of, which just kills me.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, there's some humor there too. But I mean, the way that I kind of look at this, guys, is all of our teams did some interesting things to get into the cap. On top of that, I do think that I mean, I've had to have these hard conversations with many Broncos fans, and that is when your team hasn't done particularly well, it takes longer than you think to get to the actual level that you hope your team gets to. And I think that that's an important thing. That's not meant to, crap on any of the other teams here, because I am actually including my team in that same statement and same comment as well. So this is not, shade on everyone else and, trying to polish something that is an actual turd and calling it a diamond. This is me literally saying that I've seen it firsthand. You can look around the league and it takes vision, the right things to fall at the right time for these things to stack one on top of another to get yourself to where you need to go. So is it possible that the Raiders have stacked all the right coaching staff and have put some of the right players in place to go out and kill the division and overtake the Chiefs? Sure, it's possible. Is it likely? No.
But do you believe that you will beat us at least once next year, given your current situation?
Yes.
Wow.
Yes,
okay.
I do. And
I think I mean,
and I can.
Would you disagree? Would you disagree though that the Sean Payton thing with the Russell Wilson thing is leaving a lot of residual bad feelings in your organization right now that still will take time to get managed?
No, because I think what you've seen in this offseason is the folks in the locker room that were the most vocal, that were perhaps undermining what was meant to be cultural changes for the Denver Broncos. Many of those players were shown the door and asked to leave the building and or traded or cut. And I think that when you look at, I mean, this comes down, like we've had this discussion briefly before, but for the benefit of everyone who's joining us, and by the way, thank you everyone who's joining us live. Questions or comments, leave them down below. Happy to answer them at any point in the show. And another thing, we need more likes on these videos, guys. Go ahead and give us those thumbs up on all the channels, please. Helps us reach more fans just like you. But to answer your question there, Angelo, just generally speaking, when you have a team that has not won since Super Bowl 50 in terms of made it to the playoffs, because that's really what matters. Like if you need to get to the dance and even have a chance at the Super Bowl, we have not made it to the playoffs since winning Super Bowl 50. That kind of speaks to whether it be front office issues or culture problems on your team. And that is a problem. They're full stop. Like that is the problem. And so we now need to rebuild a culture. And you do that by getting rid of, you call it dead wood, but whatever you want to call it, refer to it as. Just because players are household names doesn't mean that their contributions to the team have been enough to get you over that hurdle, to get you to that promised land or the spot you're trying to get to. So, I look to what the Super Bowl 50 team had to offer. It had Von Miller, you had DeMarcus Ware, and you had guys like Aqib Talib, who was that underappreciated veteran presence on the back end of the cornerback room that literally knew nothing else but winning. Right? Like you need a culture that has guys that hold themselves to that standard. And I mean, all of us in the AFC West, with the exception of Alex's team, really have to think about that as a culture setting. Like, who are you going to bring in to reset that culture to say win, like only win? Like that is like a loss is an unacceptable outcome for a game. And obviously these are NFL players, so they're always competitors, and that's just lip service at that point. But you're at the NFL. You are no longer against college dudes that you can just ruckshot run over. You're in the best of the best of the best, and you're in the best of the best across multiple years of college football. Mm-hmm. It's just Chris Jones is like 6 or 7 years into the league at this point. These college dudes that are coming into the draft never even played college ball when Chris Jones was playing college. Some of these dudes were like youngins in high school, right? And so you're dealing with a completely different group of people in at the NFL level, and you need to have a culture and tone setter. So do I think the Broncos can beat the Raiders once this year? Yes. Why? The NFL is at such an odd parity compared to any other professional sports league that any given Sunday can happen. Any slip up or mess up that the Raiders have in a game can mean a Broncos victory, even if it wasn't necessarily warranted or deserved. And on top of that, you have no idea what kind of injuries your team is going to suffer over.
Yeah, no, of course. I mean, we can't. So, no, absolutely not.
There's too many variables for me to make these blanket statements of saying, I'm
so
not going to sweep you, because that's dumb.
So here's a fair question then. Given what we currently have right now, so obviously injuries can't count because that's on a what if this scenario happens. Factually speaking, given all of our current roster scenarios, coaching scenarios of what we actually all have, would you say the Raiders aren't at least number 2 to the Chiefs? If we were ranking it right now, if we were basing our wins on our actual rosters right now, you're telling me the Chargers are better than the Raiders?
Yes.
They are not. They don't have a receiver, and
they have a quarterback, and that's the one position you need that will
and
define
again,
how you are as a
the
franchise.
What if scenario again. You're doing
it's not a what if. We have a quarterback. You don't.
Your quarterback won less games than our quarterback. That's an actual fact. That's an actual fact.
Yes, and our head coach also actively blew more games for our franchise than you won as a franchise.
Win more games than Aiden O'Connell.
I don't care if he won.
Justin Herbert got hurt, so he didn't play a full year.
I know. We're speaking.
Aiden O'Connell came in,
and not what ifs.
Are you blaming that 63-point loss on Herbert? Are you blaming that on him?
I'm saying that if you factually look at it.
So that was your biggest point of emphasis for saying that you were going to sweep us this year.
This is ridiculous.
And Angelo, in fairness, your team and the Chargers are actually in very similar positions. If we're going to be honest. You are in a regime change for a full year cycling over. The Chargers are in a regime change. Now, in fairness, the Raiders are in a slightly better position than the Chargers because
their head coach number 2, right?
Because he had. It's not year 2 necessarily. It's like you're like 1.5 by the end of this season coming up, right?
You asked me to break down our offense. So are you telling me that the Chargers' current offense, losing Keenan Allen, losing Mike Williams, losing Gerald Everett, actually has no running backs, no wide receivers, no tight ends, no O-line except for Slater? That's better than the Raiders, who has Colton Miller, Dylan Parham,
I love how he said all of our free agent signings are nobodies, but all of his free agent signings are going to be the reason why that team is second in the division.
In my opinion, I think there needs to be a bit of a balance, which is we don't know what offensive system the Raiders are going to be running this year with a full offseason. We don't know if it's going to be fully actually successful or even as successful as you were last season when you had the wins that are there. You just don't. And frankly, the other thing we don't know is just how many of the current players on the Chargers roster fit the vision that Harbaugh has for the future of the Chargers. My problem that I have right now is I don't feel that I have enough information to make these kind of blanket statements as to who and what is going to be what. And no, that's not meant as a cop-out answer. I've literally been consistent anytime I've spoken on this topic about regime changes. And I'm one of the few Broncos fans that I don't like the Russell Wilson trade before he even started a game. I have been the one very early on, and I've taken a boatload of flack for it by saying, I like Simmons as a dude. I just don't like the play on the field. And lo and behold, he's like one of the only safeties that hasn't been touched by another team. I like him as a guy. I think that he had some deficiencies that put him in a tough spot to get paid the amount of money that he did. And I think that we can probably yield better results from less expensive rookies, if I'm being perfectly honest.
Yeah.
We might not get the interceptions, but I think you're going to get the other production, the other side of the safety position above and beyond what Simmons was able to give us. So do I think that on paper, as you stand today, that the Raiders are number 2? No, I think that the Raiders and Chargers are kind of in like a 1A, 1B or 3A, 3B kind of situation.
But if you're saying it based on record, right? The Raiders were 8-9. We were 1 game away from missing the playoffs. How many did the Chargers win, and how far away were they from missing the playoffs last year? Because we're just talking factually, right? If we're just talking factually, then factually speaking.
Well, the facts are Herbert didn't start.
No. If we're just talking,
so if you want to just look at Herbert's record, you're
going to have to find a game. You're going to have to find a game in where Justin Herbert actually factually scored 4 touchdowns on the Raiders. Oh, that didn't happen. But Aiden O'Connell did throw 4 touchdowns against the Chargers.
Yes,
last year.
and Easton Stick turned the ball over 3 times. That led to 3 direct touchdowns. So yes, that is also a fact that Easton Stick contributed.
My
to
general comments are: record against a single team doth not a better team make when you're looking at overall, like league wide, or even if you're only looking at the division, right? Now, what's going to get you to the playoffs guaranteed? Winning the division. What have the Chiefs done every year in quite some time now?
7 times.
7 times. 7 times, right?
Actually, 7 times.
So
3 Super Bowls. Actually, another fact, John actually passed the Raiders in Super Bowl wins. So what you said earlier, John, was incorrect.
And again,
and the Raiders,
this whole thing wasn't about me attacking the Chiefs.
Raiders are tied with Denver for Super Bowl wins, and at least Denver's was in it. Last win was in the year that started with 2. So
the whole thing though wasn't like this contest of me attacking the Chiefs. I never even attacked the Chiefs. Robert being high on whatever he's smoking, thinking that the Chargers aren't in trouble.
Clearly not as strong as whatever
you're
clearly
high. Because one quarterback, as we all know, doesn't fix the team. If that was true, then one quarterback would be the reason why. I mean,
factually speaking, one quarterback named Patrick Mahomes did fix the Chiefs.
I know, but he needed. Did he not need? Are you telling me that Patrick Mahomes? Okay, no. I'm going to be fair in that fact. Let's take Patrick Mahomes and now put him into the Chargers, and let's flip it, and let's put Justin Herbert into the Kansas City Chiefs. How many Super Bowls does Patrick Mahomes win in the last 7 years with that Chargers team, with Brandon Staley, with all of the crap that nothing. Exactly.
You're just making my point, though. You're just proving my point that even the greatest quarterback alive.
Hold on. So I can quickly answer some of these questions and give us perhaps a little bit better context rather than shouting over each other here, which is, if you're looking for a team that went from not very good to certainly in a discussion that we are all willing to admit on this panel was very competitive and likely looking like they have a bright future, I would point to the Houston Texans and CJ Stroud.
Absolutely.
Okay.
100%.
Okay. So Angelo, to answer your question, and the reason why, I kind of feel like I need to kind of step in as a bit of a voice of reason in the conversation here is can a team insert a quarterback and go from mediocre to looking very good? In my opinion, and proof based on the Texans, the answer to that is yes. Now, what a team normally, and I can't even think of one that has even been able to do it. If you don't have even a serviceable quarterback, the odds of you even being able to make the playoffs are, that's a pipe dream.
Slim to none.
Like that's a
Right.
slim to nil. That's
like
a
the
slim to nil.
Steelers, for example, who made the playoffs last year.
Correct. Right. And so when I'm looking at what I've seen from Herbert has gotten his team to the playoffs. Herbert has look, you can argue that they haven't done very well once they've gotten there, and that is also a fair statement to make.
Historically, not well.
Sorry, Robert, it is factually true.
No, you're speaking facts.
Yeah, but at the end of the day, when you've looked at what Herbert's record has been, you've looked at his win percentage and just his general stats outside of even just the flashy ones, he is certainly a statistical top tier quarterback in the NFL.
Absolutely.
Now,
Justin Herbert is the man. I said it in the very beginning.
Right.
What I'm also saying too is, like I said, factually, is the Chargers in worse cap space than the Raiders? True or false?
We're number 5 in the league right now in cap space.
We still have 30 million left, dude, and we're already.
We have like 40 mil after all the free agency and people we let
Good
go.
luck trying to get who's left.
But you just asked the question who has more cap space, and I just proved you wrong by saying we have more cap space, and now you're flipping it by saying
after you got rid of.
So then why bring it up?
That's literally like saying. That's literally like saying I just proved you wrong when we got nobody and we lost Keenan Allen too. We have more cap space because we no longer have Keenan Allen, Mike Williams. Name it. We had to beg both.
Those were the only two really we lost.
We had to go beg Khalil Mack.
We didn't beg. They took a pay cut.
At least
we beg? They could have said no.
So here's the point, right? Is the Chargers have 40 million in cap space, which gives them options, especially after the draft. So again, you see this every year. Teams are going to take guys that are reasonably good, and if they're able to get the young dude that they were able to get in the draft that they wanted, they'd be like, all right, hey, veteran, you know that guy, you know that we kind of said we were going to keep you. We kind of lied. And then we go ahead and they got cut, right? And so you see that second major wave of free agents that come and that are released right after the draft. That happens every year. It's undeniable. Every year that happens. And the Chargers are now in a unique spot where they can either target a guy in the draft through a draft trade if they so chose to obtain talent and then absorb that cap influx into their team now with the moves that they've made, that they have the money to do it if they so choose. And they also have reasonably good draft capital to obtain good players to backfill some of their holes given their current cap space. And on top of that, they have a gifted head coach who has won in the NFL, and they have their franchise quarterback. They are not seeking their franchise
quarterback. Put up the
John
Leon comment too, if you're going to do that. So, yeah, that's also a fact, just so that you know.
Well, the fact is that just a single game doesn't necessarily define a season or the caliber of the team.
Right.
So as an example, my Denver Broncos almost had a record set on them in the same season. Like legit. And
beat the Chiefs.
And we beat the Chiefs. So that's the thing. Like that same defense basically locked down the Kansas City Chiefs who won the Super Bowl. Right. So the whole point is any given Sunday, one team, including within the division, can in fact beat another. That is just a straight up fact. Yeah. You ask me a question, and my objective answer, looking at things based on all of the variables, based on all the years that I've been kind of, mapping these things out. Do I like some of the pieces that are on the Raiders? Sure do. Do I think the Raiders have done things to help themselves as a team? Sure do. Do I think that the Raiders still have some questions that need answering and that we just don't know yet what those answers are going to be and whether or not the right people were brought in to fill those gaps? Yep, that is true as well. And I have similar questions for the Chargers. But what I do know is the guy throwing the football for the Chargers, being the guy that touches the ball the most on the field, is certainly someone that we can all agree on is not in question. And my Denver Broncos and your Las Vegas Raiders being the
We
two
don't have
teams,
a Justin Herbert.
we
Agreed.
don't have that guy.
I
Like,
know.
we just don't. And
I know.
And
And both your Denver Broncos and my Las Vegas Raiders also won more games than the Chargers, who does have Justin Herbert. Those are just facts. Did I not?
Yeah,
just
we
say a
also
fact?
don't have that head
That's
coach
an actual
anymore.
fact, right, Alex?
and
That's
that's
an
fine.
actual fact, though, right?
And that's
This is what I
fine.
mean is when I'm deemed to be crazy, but Robert, who is living into reality that he does have Justin Herbert, who has not been able to win more games last year than my Las Vegas Raiders or your Denver Broncos. Those are just facts. I'm sorry your team sucks, but your team sucks. I'm sorry. That's just
It
the
did
truth.
suck. Yeah, you're right. It did suck. Your team currently still sucks. At least my
We
team
were
had a-
8-9.
Yes,
I'm
you were-
sorry. We
you
were
were-
8-9 and second in the division.
Yes, you were
If
8-9.
we suck, then you're worse than sucky.
We were. Yes, last season we were.
Stupid, dude.
100%. I went into last season saying you guys had a better coaching staff than us. You guys had a better.
We had a
defense than
better
us.
coaching staff than you.
Yes.
We had
Yes.
to fire our
So did
coaching
we.
staff
Did
halfway
your
through the season.
did your coaching
Rich,
staff
can
give
you
up
please-
the
can
most
you please bring
points
some
to a
context to this?
division rival
just
in the
said
history of their
We
franchise?
had a better
No,
coaching staff
no,
than
he
No.
didn't.
Hey, guys, let's reel that back in. So you guys, we do both realize that, one, yelling into a mic isn't going to make your point any more valid. So we'll just start there. And then two things can be true, right? The Las Vegas Raiders could have had a coach that needed to be fired in order for your team to improve. Facts. Yeah, great. And we can also agree that Staley also needed to be fired. Also factually true. Again,
Since, like a season ago.
like
Really need to be fired after Jacksonville.
Thank you. Thank you.
like two things
Yes.
can be true, right? Like we can all agree that
Yeah.
we can all agree that
Yeah,
two things can
I
in fact be
agree with that,
true.
Rich.
And yelling
100%
and
I agree
screaming
with you on
into a
that.
mic isn't going to make the fact that you're correct, Angelo, that your coach needed to go, and Robert is also correct that his coach needed to go. And the two things can be true. Now, if you're going to start leveling out on a scale on which team sucked more, there is varying degrees and reasons as to why one team wins more games than another in the NFL. One of them comes down to quality of coaching. The other one comes down, like, let's put it this way. We can likely point to the fact that Staley was the worst coach between McDaniels and Staley. Because,
Yes.
again, if you're talking these facts
Rich,
of where
can
you
you
finish,
honestly say that with a straight face, knowing that McDaniels was your coach too?
I can say that McDaniels, when he's given more control over a roster, drafts with a vision, and he wasn't able to actually realize that vision because I don't think he executes particularly well.
So Staley, who is actually really good as a defensive coach,
No,
who
he's
I
not.
think already got hired.
No,
as a
he's
defensive
not.
coach.
No, he's not.
I can coach Aaron Donald. I can coach Jalen
No, he's
Ramsey.
not.
Would you say that it's a little bit? Well, I guess I can't say that because Josh McDaniels has Super Bowls as an offensive coordinator.
I have not actually seen anything from Staley on his own where he's
I think
had,
this speaks volumes right here. What's the guy that left the Chargers? Kendricks, Hicks? What's his name?
Aaron
Linebacker?
Kendricks.
Yeah,
Aaron
He
Kendricks.
first was going to sign with San Francisco, and then last minute switched to Dallas. Why? Because Staley's in
Brandon
San
Staley was
Francisco.
there. Yup. Exactly.
at the end of the day, the coach has to, like, all these NFL players, every single one of them. If you ask all of them the same question, we had Derek Wolf actually on MHRT Network for an interview. Fantastic show. Go back and check it out. Just a top, like, just a great dude. But when you actually hear Wolf in the interview and what he said, players are simply looking for a coach to make them better. And at the end of the day, I think Kendricks not going to the Niners when Staley was there said about all you needed to know about how an NFL player that worked under him felt of him and his skill set, which was, I don't believe he's going to take me to the next level and push me to be better. I would rather go somewhere else, despite the fact that I've almost committed to that team already, right? And so, no, I actually object, like truly analyzing the situation. No, I don't.
Since you said that, then Rich, can I ask you this question, which I know you'll answer calmly? Given the fact that Keenan Allen just went to a team that does not have a quarterback, what does that say about his belief in Harbaugh making him better or taking him to the next level, especially because Justin Herbert is top 5 best quarterbacks in the.
He's traded. He didn't leave.
He didn't choose to go.
No, I know, but he could have stayed and restructured just like Matt.
But he didn't. They had. I'll answer that for you. He had already taken a pay cut last year when we were going into this season, and so now coming off this season, it being his best statistical season, I could understand why he doesn't want to take a pay cut. That's like if you're working at a company that actively hires somebody else to be your future replacement, you then still put up your best year of work that you've ever produced, and they still come to you at the end of the year and are like, yeah, we're going to need to take a little bit more. You're going to be like, no, like, F off. Like, I'm not, no, you gave me
when you're, 32?
Exactly. Yep. Exactly.
He's got like maybe 2 years of elite level play left at the NFL level. He's looking at this saying, I'm going to be trying to push for a reasonable, maybe 3-year extension with an opt-out year in year 3. And he's looking to try to leave a legacy. And perhaps if Williams does shine or Daniels is pick number 1, he's looking to build that rapport with that quarterback, elevate that quarterback, and also get great stats, because he's trying to push into that upper tier at the NFL. He recognized that the Chargers just simply didn't have the cap space in order to keep him, and or weren't willing to justify the cap space to keep him. And fair enough, that was the Chargers' choice. And so they moved off of Allen. And yeah, I think it was a smart move. I think it's a smart move for the Chargers to say, he's aging. We're not going to re-up him at the end of this year. We may as well trade him to get some capital back for him anyway. And on top of that, I actually think that the Chargers tried to do right by Keenan Allen by saying, we're going to send you to the team that is picking the best quarterback in this draft. We are trying our best here, and I hope it works out.
Okay, I'm really glad you answered it, and see how calmly that answer was. That was great. So then, with you saying that, Rich, based on the actual facts you've now laid out to everyone, is it fair for someone like me, a lowly Raider fan, to say that the difference between the Raiders, the Chiefs, and the Raiders, the Chargers, and the Broncos right now is, in the Broncos scenario, they're not going all in to win the division this season. In the Chargers scenario, they're not going all in to win the division this season. But in the Raiders scenario, we are trying to go all in to go after the Kansas City Chiefs. We're not in a rebuild. We're not in a retool. And all these quarterback questions, man, you guys could keep watching all the shows I hosted on the Captain Jack Rackham channel, including the show with Robert, where I laid out actual facts of statistics that Aiden O'Connell has. Stats. The reason why you don't trade the farm simply for any quarterback, just like Rich. Rich is telling us right now, there's no way he would probably want to go choke Peyton if Peyton traded 3 number 1 picks to go
but
get.
But his Broncos are in a way different spot than your Raiders.
It doesn't matter. We're in a different spot too. And if we trade away 3 number 1s to get a guy that we're going to sit for a year, it's stupid when we already have Gardner Minshew and Aiden O'Connell, who actually won. If we were being honest, he played 9 games. He's 5-4. But we just throw in that other game so that we could just say, sure, he's 5-5 and lost to the Chargers, even though that was a crappy scenario. But under the Antonio Pierce head coaching regime, he's 5-4. So he has a winning record. He's not terrible. And that's why I've always said, so again, my whole point, Rich, so I don't get lost in it, is that your team is not going all in with all the moves that you're making to try to win the division and go after the Chiefs going into the season. The Chargers are not doing it either. So don't get mad at us that we are actually doing it. Signing Christian Wilkins is a clear sign that we're going to spend money to go after the big dog. We're spending money to go after the big dog. That's what we're doing.
I think you can go about the same thing 2 different ways. I think you can attempt to bring in a bunch of people to try to accomplish a goal. Just ask the Philadelphia Eagles how signing a whole whack of elite level players works when you're trying to then win something. You can eventually, or you can actually end up failing as a result of moving in that direction. I think that the long lasting changes, and you're seeing that with the Chiefs, you saw that with the Patriots, the quote unquote dynasties that you've seen in the league. You even saw a bit of a lasting dynasty kind of occur there a little bit with the Ravens for a little bit, and then 49ers for a little bit. Arguably a little bit with the Packers as well, because they kind of went from Favre to Rodgers. And they kind of had some erosion occur there with the Packers, but I digress. The point is the best teams that have that lasting kind of longevity to them of winning, they build a culture. Even the Saints, after Sean Payton left, still had some degree of success because there was a culture that was built there with some of the players. And then it took a couple of years, and then some players kind of went down the road of entitlement rather than grit and push, and then they kind of all went downhill, and that's what you're seeing now with the Saints. But looking at the way to do it, you can build it through culture, and then you end up getting more from players that are typically seen as lesser than.
Yeah, like a Jack Jones, for example.
Which is one way of going about it, right? And then you have another way of going about it, which is to bring in a whole bunch of people. In my opinion, I think that the Broncos are being discounted for how competitive they're really going to look on the field. Okay. I don't think they're going to be world beaters, and no, I'm certainly not saying that at all. But I actually believe they're being discounted based on how competitive they're actually going to look on the field. I think that the Chargers are going to be in a similar position to what the Broncos were last year. I think that there's going to be real-time editing occurring as the season goes on because you have a coach with a vision. So those are where I kind of see the teams being and where they're at. And I think that the Broncos are kind of further ahead in that because they already have the captain at the helm who's got the vision and is simply trying to execute that vision on a go forward. So anyways, with that in mind, we're going to end the show. We're going to thank you all for joining us here on the AFC West.
Pour some water over this spot.
Yeah, we gotta simmer. You gotta lower the temperature here in the room, despite the fact that we're all division rivals. But it's going to be a really interesting season. Also, it's going to be a very interesting thing just to see how the different visions of the different teams are going to work out. Because the Raiders are certainly going at it from a different angle than, in my opinion, than say the Broncos and the Chargers are. And we'll see which one kind of comes out on top when all is said and done. But with that in mind, guys, until next week where the West Side is the best side, Angelo, again, thank you so much for coming and filling in for Captain Jack. It was an absolute pleasure.
Everybody put some emojis in the chat for Angelo.
Peace!